Yep.
Meeting will come to order. It's October 6, 2015. This is a special meeting of the Riverside District 96 Board of Education. Margie, would you please take the roll, please?
Mr. Brockway?
Here.
Ms. Kleiber?
Here.
Ms. Mangio?
Here.
Ms. Morello?
Just coming in.
She can scream.
Okay.
Here.
Say here.
They just called your name right as you walked in.
There you go.
It's perfect timing.
She's here. Mr. Miller?
Here.
Ms. Murphy?
Here.
Mr. Regan?
Present. All right. Is there any public comment? No public comment. In that case, we'll move on to the only item on our special meeting agenda, which is we're going to hear a report from Dr. Burnett and Dr. Kelly about their progress on the superintendent search.
Start over here. We have two things primarily that we would like to discuss with you, and the first is the advertisement for the position and the new superintendent profile, which we put together as a result of meeting with each building staff, parent meeting, district office staff, and the community meeting, as I indicated. And we were disappointed in the turnout for the community meeting, and so I want to thank the communities of Brookfield, North Riverside, and Riverside for helping us do an e-blast throughout the district and a little bit beyond in some cases. And so while we were at 22 responses toward the end of September, we extended the online survey through the end of that first week of October through October 2, and went from 22 responses to 105. And so through these sources, we were able to put together a candidate profile, and we listed pretty much in order of importance the attributes that'll kind of guide us as we go through the search. And then, so I provided you with a hard copy packet of that information, the profile, the online results of characteristics, and then we also have in that packet responses from staff and the community in terms of district strengths and challenges. And so those have all been kind of reference points for us in putting that profile together. And I do have a sample ad. And our intent is, with your authorization tonight, to do that in the IASA Job Bank, to do it with the regional offices and ISC's intermediate service centers, in particularly the metro area. And I've also checked with AASA. They have a service for posting positions, and the cost is between $410 and $560, depending as whether you are a member or not.
Just so they know, AASA is the American Association of School Administrators, the national organization over the Illinois Association. Throw all these letters out.
Thank you.
Some people have no idea what we're all talking about.
Appreciate it. And certainly, by the way, if I say something and you want a little bit more clarification, please do so. The AASA, which is a national search engine, does it for that rate for 30 days. So what we thought, we would put it in November 1 and run it for the month of November. The position advertisement indicates that it'll be open until November 30 or until filled. And the reason we put that until filled, it just is a kind of like a little wiggle room space, so you don't have to turn around and repost it again after the deadline if you're still looking at applicants. So that really is my part of the report. Dennis is going to talk about timeline and process a little bit. And in terms of the timeline, we don't really need to make any particular decisions tonight other than make sure you put some of these dates in ink in your calendar because they're pretty important. So any questions at this point regarding the profile or proceeding with the ad? Wow. I must become more convincing with age.
You stunned them. Good evening. All of a sudden, summer became fall, and tomorrow morning is a pretty important date for us. Tomorrow morning we meet and we go online, and we officially have an opening as of tomorrow. And then we sit back and wait for all the good people to apply. That's not exactly what we're going to do. We're not going to sit back and wait. We've got 4 months to find a really great superintendent for you. And there are some key things that we have to do in the next 4 months, beginning with that application going online. But what we're going to do, when you look at the timeline, it looks like, gosh, they're not doing much in October. But we are doing 3 major activities in October. The first thing we're going to be doing is, as the early people come in and apply online, Dave and I will go on every week in October and November and go through the applications and start already to vet candidates, finding out who they are, and trying to, our goal is to get it down to a magic 6 who are really going to be good people to talk to. So we will do that through October and November. We'll be going through every application that comes in and checking some of the resources and doing as much as we can before the deadline. The second thing that we're going to do, obviously, is we're going to do a lot of network. There are probably a couple of people, really talented administrators in Illinois, who don't know if they're going to be a candidate for your school district. They don't know, but they will know in the next 30 days. Sometimes the best candidates you get are the people who are fairly happy with where they are and very successful. But after they find out more about the school district and what they can do here, they will apply. And sometimes the very best people come out of that type of situation. The last thing that we have to do is, in October, is start to gather information on salary and benefits packages. There's a lot of data out there, and we'll want to not only give it to you, but give it to you in a form that you can handle, that'll be understanding, and will be comparable data. We don't want to compare candidate here and what we would offer that person to people who are just coming from totally different situations. So we'll be working on that also. And I can't remember which one of you asked the question of, well, gee, are we kind of a little bit behind the process, and is it going to take all this time? We're in really good shape right now. One thing you need to remember is no school districts are going to be interviewing, and no candidates are going to be traveling literally from about December 1st to January 15th. Because of the holidays, most school districts shut down what they're doing as far as hiring. So really, we come into the process in mid-January in really good shape, I think. David mentioned a couple of dates that you need to already have on that calendar. January 18th through the 21st is the first 3 days. We'll be presenting the 6 candidates to you during that time sequence. And then the week after, the 25th through the 28th, we will be doing 3 candidates, 1 per night, and they will be the finalists. So those are important dates to have all of you ready and willing to go.
Dennis, if I could just interrupt, probably 3 interview dates each of those weeks. So I think our preference would be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So 18, 19, 20 in January. If that works for you. And then the same thing the following week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
We have a board meeting on the 19th. I don't know if that changes anything. We have a Board of Education meeting on the 19th.
Okay.
I just saw it on my calendar. I just wanted to.
Thank you for mentioning that, Linda. So
'Cause that
then
might be a
that
long
week,
night.
we should do Monday, Wednesday, Thursday.
The strategy is if you can do it early,
It's gonna be a fun
it
week.
gives us time later in the week to talk to the candidates and do all of the organizing for future interviews. So it'd be helpful to us. And beyond that, once we pick the candidates, we still plan on doing a site visit to the finals. That'll be early February. And by February 16th, we should have the next person ready to sit at the front table. And beyond that, we're hoping that because the person is identified in early February, we're going to really have 3 months left in the school year where that person may come several days to the school district to meet with staff, walk through the buildings, get to know all of the folks, even maybe go to some community functions and start to have the face out in the community. It's really important to do that because if you've ever started a job in the summer, particularly in the schools, you realize there's nobody home. And one of the frustrating things as a new superintendent is when you walk in July the 1st, and literally there are only 4 or 5 people in the whole school district. So you have to wait for 6 weeks in order to meet all of your new colleagues. So hopefully by using April, May, and June, we can get the person in and get that started. Any questions? Okay. And thanks in particular to all of you who met with us a couple of weeks ago at night. It was fun getting to talk to you, and we got a lot of insights, particularly for me. David needs no insights. He's been in this district so long, but it was really good to get some insights from you about the district and the community. It was helpful for me. Thank you.
I learned a lot as well and really appreciated getting to know you and hearing your concerns, strengths, issues, and so forth. And as Dennis and I go through this search process, we really gather a wealth of information that will be helpful to us in getting that great fit between the individual and the district here.
Well, thank you both for, you made a lot of progress in the last month, so this is great.
Well, if you look at that timeline, we're on page 2.
Exactly.
Oh, Harvey would say.
So is there any discussion,
Okay.
any further discussion here?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to approve the final draft of the candidate profile, the brochure announcing the position of superintendent of schools and the timeline?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Is it a voice vote or?
Voice vote, yeah. You're not spending any money.
All in favor?
We've already spent that.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Okay, at this time, turn the gavel over to Linda for the committee
We really,
policy.
we're going to really pass it over.
Yes, you have to.
Yeah. All right, so now we're on to the policy committee portion of the meeting. I don't have to do anything else, right? We're just continuing over? Okay, just making sure. You'll notice the first thing on your agenda is the press issue 89 update. You guys have the memo and there are 16, 17 policies for first reading. Griff and I went over them in a working meeting, and nothing looked too, it's all like standard legal changes. Many were just updates to footnotes or legal references. There's a few that I'd like to note that changed pretty significantly. The Policy 8:80, gifts to the district, was completely rewritten, if you'll notice. And then also the there is policy 8:10, connection with the community. A big section was added to that about community engagement, which was very timely since we've been doing a lot of that. Griff, anything else to note in there?
Well, the one suggestion, and this is really a decision by the board, they're talking about student fundraising, and in many communities that I've been in, generally schools have discouraged children from going door to door and knocking on doors. Now, there's the two suggestions here by the School Board Association, is either prohibit it or discourage it. Minimally, I would recommend you discourage it. I mean, and again, I'm looking at it as a community member in my own community. Do I want kids knocking on the door raising money? I'm not a big fan of that. Now you guys might feel totally different. So if I'm out of your, value system here, you tell me. You could either prohibit it, or I would recommend at least discourage it, not make something that you tell kids this is the way we're going to raise money, knocking on doors.
Griff, is the reason for the policy, the recommendations, yours and the IASB, because of the sensibilities of the community
Safety.
or the safety of the
Safety.
children?
Safety, number one, and also the sensibilities. And I'm looking at it from my own personal point of view as a community member. I don't really want kids knocking on the door. If I need to, raise money, there are different ways to raise money for schools. But,
I think
having
it's
kids going around
the way
block.
it's written, because we're in policy 7:325. The way it's written, it's under number 4, that it's under the second section, number 4, and it says student safety must be paramount, and then you add an option, and door-to-door solicitations are prohibited, or door-to-door solicitations are discouraged.
Right.
And Griff is recommending the discouraged.
Discouraged.
Because it's still,
Provides more flexibility.
It does. In some cases, okay, if a parent goes along with the child, Halloween's coming. We all know all the issues of Halloween, and most parents are very vigilant on being with their kids, especially young kids, going door to door. Compared to what Randy and I did when we were kids, there wasn't a parent around, trust me. Am I right?
You're right.
So, and we don't even want to talk about that, but to me, it is a safety issue, so discouraging it, I think, would be the appropriate thing to do.
Yeah.
So,
Do we have any recent examples of where kids in the district were going door to door?
I have no
I
idea.
can't think of any.
I
Probably-
think there are some PTO, PTA fundraisers that people could opt to go door to door, but I don't know how
I
many.
think I've ever seen anyone from District.
I know high
96.
school.
High
I've
school
seen them
does
from
it.
the high
208 they-
schools.
Yes.
And I guess the question is, I guess is the fundraising that's addressed in the policy specifically for the benefit of the district, or some of the organizations like the PTO? What sort of the scope, I guess, or the
Well,
reach?
in the first line, school sponsors student organizations and parent organizations and boosters clubs.
So I think it's everything.
It sort of answers
Okay.
it, answers the question.
Yeah.
Yeah, that does.
So is everybody okay with going with option B, discourage and not prohibit? Okay.
That works for me.
Are there any other policies in this press update that anybody would like to discuss? I'm assuming, Griff, that we don't want to go line by line through
No,
these,
I
so
don't see any need for that.
I would like to save you guys some.
A lot of it's legal reference changes.
Yes.
And they're just updating the legal references,
Yeah.
that you should include in your policy, but it really doesn't change anything.
Right. All right. Margie, I think these need to get posted to the website for the public's view, and then we will be hearing these for the second reading at the regular board meeting.
Yeah,
On
if there isn't
October 20th.
changes, then we can go to a second reading.
Right.
If you change it, there should be a first reading again on the October
Right.
20th board meeting. So,
All right, moving on. That was quick. See, a whole page down. Easy. Here's some additional board policy updates, and I'm sure Mr. Tufano is probably going to be speaking to some of these. The first one is policy 7:340, student records. from my notes, there's no update to the policy. The procedures have been updated, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And I believe you have the procedures in your packet.
They do.
And these are the procedures that were sent to legal counsel.
Right. So this
And
is
Don
your
spoke about.
recommended legal language.
Any questions or concerns or discussion? No? All right, moving on. Policy 2:230, public comments at Board of Education meetings. In our last policy meeting, we discussed altering this policy to limit the time. We also talked about possibly allowing only comments in the beginning that were on the actual agenda. In discussion, we kind of decided that eliminating the time from 5 to 3 probably will resolve any sort of time constraints we have, so we didn't make that second change in this reading. So I remember we had a little bit of slight reservation, so does anybody have any comments or discussion about that?
So the only change is 5 to 3.
Yeah, so the only change of that is that public comment should be limited to 3 minutes.
Works for me.
Yeah, good, all right. You guys are making this easy.
Oh, wait a minute, we haven't got to the big one here.
Moving on, policy 7:30, exhibit 2, the elementary school student assignment. This is another one that we talked at the last policy committee meeting, talking about kindergarten student assignment, changing some of the language in this. I hope you guys had time to review this one because I want to make sure that any discussion we need to have, we do it now so we can get this done before registration actually sneaks up on us. Currently, the only addition that Griff, or the change that Griff made, Dr. Call made, was that it says all parents will be notified of the school assignment on Friday before spring break. That is changed to the last day of the school year, last day of school.
The key thing there's two parts, registration and assignment.
Right.
Registration, we do need, if we have online registration, to have our numbers so you can have the accurate staffing. Because you do not want, if we had a drop of 30 kids, you don't want to spend $25,000, $30,000 for a kindergarten section when you don't need it. So we do have to have an estimate, but the assignment part, I totally agree with Jeff. The longer we can wait before we have the assignment, the better we can create a fair allotment of and proximity to the schools in our placement. Is that a fair way to say it?
I think so,
Yeah.
So are you thinking then maybe extending that, not the last day of school, but
Well, the assignment part,
not the spring registration would stay?
right, the spring registration would be the assignment part that we're talking about.
Okay.
And obviously the later is to our advantage.
But how late is too
But
late?
here's Jeff, and
I would be
I don't want to
concerned.
speak for Jeff, but he goes, well, what would be the incentive of registering early
Right.
when nobody's getting assigned? And
I
that's-
would be concerned as a kindergarten parent to wait until the end of August. I want to show my child where they're going,
Right.
so I can arrange for whatever is going to happen with their pickup. I mean, that's pretty late
How many?
to go into that. I mean, the last day of school, I think it'd be fine.
How many? Do you know roughly how many students we picked up between?
About 20.
In the summer, basically.
20
So
total.
it's basically an entire class, basically.
Right.
I mean, I agree.
Well, we were expecting like 40, I think.
Expecting 40 because this was a light year.
Yeah, it was a very light year. We got like half of what we expected. Right.
I mean, I agree with your point, Sherry. The only thing I would say is that when we're signing kindergartners, these are the first kid in the family. So that means this kid is going to go to that school for the next 6 years.
Plus siblings.
And in addition,
Right.
all of their siblings are going to be going to that school for the next 6 years. So if we're sending them all the way across town, because we've already filled up the schools that are closest to them, that's a big hit,
I still like a little bit of a reward for those that register early. I think it's useful for the district to register early. Those parents are on top of it. I think it's helpful.
Right, but there is that, I agree with
I
you,
know,
but
I
there
know
is
what
that,
you're saying.
there's a trade-off
If
there.
you move in, it's not
If you move
exactly
in and,
fair,
like-
but I know.
I think we moved in August, and we were told that, oh, you might, and we're like 2 blocks from Central. We said, oh, you can't go to Central. Like, we had no idea, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily, we could go to Central, but like, it was just the luck of the draw, basically. So if we can minimize that to some degree, I think that's better. But I agree, there's a trade-off.
Do you guys have any thoughts on it, Mary Rose or Rich, Rachel?
I would just say that a few years ago, this is when my daughter was going into kindergarten, so it's like 6 years ago, 7 years ago, at Ames, there was the assignments between Ames and Blythe was problematic. It was going to the very day before school and maybe even into the first day of school.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That
there
late?
was, yes.
You registered in the spring, but didn't find out until
Well,
day of school started?
it didn't affect me personally, but there,
You're talking
People
about
around you.
other parents,
Right.
Yeah.
other kids.
there were some parents that had planned, say, a morning kindergarten at Ames and ended up maybe afternoon at Blythe.
Oh, that's.
And that was kind of very late in the game,
Right.
late in August.
I don't want to do that to people.
When did
No,
you,
we don't want to do
When
that.
you and
Figuring
assigned
daycare.
to people this year, do you remember roughly when that occurred? Was that late June, early July?
I think it was
Or late
ear-
June, or so mid-June maybe?
Mid-June.
Mid-June.
Mid-June is when we got all the placements done.
And that seemed to work out. I mean, that wasn't like,
Yeah, that would
Yeah.
be.
no one was
It
hugely
did,
convenient.
fairly, yeah, it worked out fairly well. We didn't make everybody happy, but we tried to
Right.
satisfy
Instead
as
of
many
August, it's
concerns
For
as
the
we
4th of
could.
July.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
that's why if we could start assigning them in June,
Right.
and have the numbers, at least registrations, online, and we could have them as early as April. That seems, at least for what we did this year, it seemed to work out.
Right.
So,
So who makes, just general information, who makes the assignments? Is this the superintendent and the principals, or is it strictly the
we
principals?
do it together, actually, yeah. We actually sit down together and
Yeah.
make the
You
assignments.
have a map in front of
And-
you and.
Well, we used to use it until Jeff came along with a nice little, algorithm. We used to use the old map with, I remember putting little pins up on the maps, but now we actually have a much more efficient way of doing it. So,
Cool.
and it is really cool.
And I think what we need to do is make sure that this policy is known.
Right.
I don't know if this information can be shared on kindergarten night, letting them know that you are registering to the district,
Right.
not to a specific school, making
we-
sure that is more known so people can't, they don't go in thinking, I'm definitely going to Ames, and then when they
Right.
don't go to Ames, they're
But the
in an
online
uproar.
thing will take care of that a little bit, when they're
Right.
really registering in the district. And they will have to bring in a birth certificate personally. We can't just have that scanned or anything.
Correct.
That,
Kindergarten registration won't be online. We said that's gonna remain.
You can have
locked.
we can have the information online, everything, but they have to bring in the documentation of the kindergarten, of the
Okay,
birth
that's a
certificate.
change from what we discussed.
Yeah.
We can do that.
So,
Because
no,
we
I,
said kindergarten was gonna be the lock-in. Okay.
that can be
Then
done.
one way to get around this question of like how do you incentivize people to register early is we could offer people like a lottery and say we're going to choose 10 people from the early registrants and guarantee that their kid is going to go to their local closest school. I mean, I could give people a slight incentive to register.
Okay.
Something like, I don't know, it's just an idea.
It's a creative idea, yeah.
Sometimes I don't know if it's just as much as people need incentive or people are moving, so.
Well,
you know,
there are
yeah.
people are moving, but
Like, I wonder
but
how many of those late registrants are,
though I'm sure they are, but
Yeah.
if we change the policy and say it's all going to occur in this summer now, people will say, well, I'll wait till June, rather than you're saying that we'd like to get the information as early as possible.
Right, for staffing purposes,
So
yeah.
basically, to get the information as early as possible, we should provide some incentive perhaps for people to register. I don't know.
and I think we can do a better job as a district of making sure that people know it's registration time and blasting it everywhere. Even if we could blast through Riverside's e-flash, heads up, registration's going on.
Put one of those
We can try to do
banners.
some- do some
Put one of the
efforts.
banners in the trees over there.
Do some efforts to get people to register earlier. A banner,
You know,
try
You see them
to.
in there, so.
If we could get some cooperation from that Riverside Landmark newspaper,
We get all the cooperation, come on,
I know, I'm just joking.
I know.
So going back to the way the policy has been rewritten, are we comfortable with the last day of school? Do we want to say by the end of June? I've heard both thrown away.
My personal preference is the end of June, I think, gives us another month to get more kids. But if we want to stay compromised, put it in the middle of June, that's fine too.
I
think
see
it was what you did
Meryl
this-
shaking your head,
Right, and
so.
actually, what
Would you
worked
like
this
to
year
jump
was-
in?
I
Yeah,
just think June 30th is safe. You will have families that will lag behind just because, and
with online, sometimes you get a little bit more of a lag, so early bird discounts with online registration have not been unheard of in other places.
So it's an
Oh.
incentive to basically to get people to register
Early bird
online.
discount, like a
Yeah,
financial
like a,
discount. Okay.
Yeah, like a 1% even.
Okay.
A district did that. Just
As a gift to your new superintendent, make it before June 30th, because at least then he or she doesn't have to deal with this.
like things like that, just because it is hard. I mean, it impacts staffing. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
bottom line.
Right.
Enrollment impacts staffing.
Right.
So, you know, the more
information you get early,
Yeah.
the better off you are.
And
That's
once you
what I
start placing kids, you're playing with people's livelihood after that in terms
Right.
of what they're counting
Yeah.
on for daycare and all that stuff.
Right.
And the child, I think it's really, people forget this is a little child who walks by, thinks that's where they're going, or maybe they don't, but it's important to them to have an idea where they're going. And without 2 days before the school, this
But
is
if
a little
we do it
child
in
who
June, that would be
should give, well, June,
almost 2
yes,
months.
I'm saying, yeah,
Yeah.
August would be too late for me, so I need it before
I
June.
think before the 4th of July.
Yeah.
Meryl, do you want to throw out what your preferred date is?
June 30th,
June
you
30th,
just
I
said.
think is it. I think before people are gone for the holiday, because then
Yeah.
you tend to have a lot of things happening right after school. People don't
Right.
fly the coop right away.
Right.
So you can
So the
kind
only
of get
people
those
you
assignments
lose
out
then
there.
are the people that are sort of moving in between June 30th and the
Right.
start of school, and there's not much you can do about that.
No.
No, there's not much you can do about that.
So you're happy with June 30th?
That's fine.
Yes, from a curriculum and instruction and
Okay.
student-centered place, yes, I think that.
But we have to have numbers with registration earlier for staffing
So
purposes.
what kind of incentives did you say district?
I mean, some districts have done financial, like an early bird discount, and
Right.
sometimes it's been a set amount. River Forest did that, as
So when you
did
register, it
Lombard.
costs some certain amount of money,
Slightly
and you're
less.
saying, that sounds good, I mean, we could get
Yeah.
off $5 off or $10
And
off.
one district I was in did a 1% discount, one district did a flat
Flat
discount.
fee, and then so you get this if you register by this
Like
day.
if you registered by June 15th, you got the
It
discount.
might
That
be a
makes
good
sense.
way to start getting people to
Right.
start getting in the swing of doing it early,
Right.
you know?
Yeah, I mean, it was nominal, so it didn't impact the budget. And-
What is the registration fee currently, do you know what that is, 150 or
It's
something like that?
different per grade,
Per
but
grade,
yeah,
it's
it,
different.
I don't know it by heart.
Roughly
At
though,
kindergarten,
what's-
I'm not sure.
$400, like
Yeah.
150.
Juanita, do you
I wanna say
remember?
it's like 90.
One of them is $80.
Yeah.
I believe that-
For kindergarten?
The kindergarten, I believe, is $80.
Okay,
So if we knock 10 or 15 bucks off.
right.
That would be.
And it would just be great for the principals presenting a kindergarten information night to make sure that this policy is
Yes.
supported and upheld.
Yeah,
and-
let Linda and I go back from after what you've just all said, and we'll give you something for first reading in October. Is that okay, Linda?
That's great, yeah, thanks.
Okay.
All right. Moving on, policy 4:55, use of credit and procurement cards. And here is a draft of this policy. I've lost where I'm at. It is a pretty basic draft, revision of this. So,
By the way, we've never used P cards.
Yeah.
And so this is this was needing revision. So we eliminated all the P card references.
You missed one,
Did we miss one? Where did I miss?
like in the third line, credit and procurement card shall
yeah,
be.
there, I see it, yeah.
And so that's good. I would like to.
Where is that now?
It's in the
Oh, I
very
see,
top.
okay, right there, okay, got it. Juanita, we missed it. I thought we had every one of them, all right.
I would actually like to see something that says procurement cards, procurement and/or purchasing cards, sometimes they're called purchasing cards, are expressly prohibited. I'd like to, because some people just think procurement cards are a subset of credit cards. So that's one of my suggestions. And then I guess I have a question.
Procurement and purchasing, is that right?
What?
What were you said procurement and?
And purchasing.
Okay.
And/or purchasing cards are expressly prohibited. And then I guess I have a question. By the way, I'm trying to track with the presentation that David made to us last year in the Finance Committee meeting.
Right.
Remember, he gave some procedures. So that's all I'm trying to,
Right.
at least my interest in is to have this policy track with that. And I guess I have a question on item number 3. Each cardholder, an employee other than the superintendent. I guess I don't understand this because we're basically not giving an employee charging
Well,
privileges.
yes and no. When you have in the above line, superintendent or designee, that would probably be an employee. And I looked at this and I thought about, just as you're thinking about it, does that make any sense if the superintendent is going to approve it? Well, if the superintendent gives a designee, the right to take the credit card and use it, it's giving some parameters on how far they could go. It's that you're saying that may charge no more than $500 in a single purchase, no more than $1,000 within a given month prior, without the authorization of the superintendent. In a way, it's redundant in the sense they have to have authorization even having the card. He's not going to give, he or she is not going to give away the card.
And also,
So-
at least the nature of the discussions that we had last year was that there would be sort of an official designee. In other words, I think that designee was, in our case, Pearl. Is that the way I understood it, David?
David, that's correct, isn't it?
In other words, it's not a revolving designee. Today you're a designee, tomorrow somebody else is a designee.
In the event of Pearl being ill, there were two other names. I think it was the superintendent, the secretary to the superintendent, the director of finance, and the assistant to the director of finance, so that we would be able to cover, when someone was out, or even multiple people were out.
Can we specify that we're going to have a limited number of designees that are going to be employees of the district office? I mean, the intent is to limit this.
Correct.
And for those who are limited, to be known and to be accountable. And then, I don't know how 3 fits in there or not, but I would maybe put a designee rather than an employee.
Yeah. That would be no problem.
If we think that 3 should.
I just took the language that was in the boilerplate from the School Board Association, and I, like you, thought, does this make any sense? If the superintendent's authorizing somebody, a designee, to use it, do you even need that? Because, if I authorized Merle to use it, I want to know how much she's going to use it for and what she's going to use it for. So I don't need a policy to tell me that she can't go beyond a certain amount. I'm not going to allow her to do that if it was extraordinary. So to me, it doesn't, in a way, I'm not sure why they created that language. I can't even explain. I guess just to put another safeguard, I guess. David, isn't that what you figure, that just another safeguard? Try to limit if somebody, a designee, is given the right to use it, it gives them parameters not to go beyond $1,000? Is that probably what they were going after?
Yes?
Yeah, I guess.
Correct. I think something also that's in the picture here is the administrative procedure that will go along with this policy.
Right.
You can be very
Right.
specific and tailor it to current circumstances.
So what we can do is write a
The policy needs to be something you don't change except very rarely.
Right.
Right.
The administrative procedure might be something you would tweak a little more often.
So to answer Mary Rose's concern, we could take your memo from August 25th, 2014, where you specifically talk about Pearl having the responsibility and so forth, and actually specifying in a procedure those designees.
Right, with the job titles.
With the job
With the
titles. Well, the
job
job titles, not the
No, yeah,
names, right?
yeah.
Right.
Right. That makes sense.
And then I'm just wondering, does anybody have any thoughts on what, it is the board's responsibility through the audit and approval process to determine whether district credit card and procurement use by the superintendent is appropriate. Anybody care to elaborate on what the board's audit and approval process might be, or if we need one? I mean, it's in the policy.
I think it's referring to keeping a tracking of all of the uses of credit cards, which we do have in place right now, and making sure that there's some kind of a feedback loop to the board. The word audit usually refers to the independent auditor or some other type of more formal. So I'm not exactly sure what language would be best.
Yeah, I don't know if that's what they're, I don't think that's what they're
That's
referring
probably
to.
not what
I think they're more, we on a monthly basis give you all our credit card transactions. And in a sense, you audit our
Right.
Yeah, we audited monthly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I got a call from one of the board members and said the old superintendent's name was on the credit card in August. Well, I went right to find out, no, she was not spending money in August, trust me. It was, Merle was spending the money, it was on somebody's name. I found the culprit, and it was
They had
Merle.
me like sign my life away.
But again, they did not update the name. It took some time to get the one name off and the right name on. So that was.
That's an audit process.
And that's when the board member called me, that being Jeff, and said, "Why is this name still on there?" I go, "Well, let me find out." And
Eagle eyes.
so you are auditing the.
Yeah.
I'd like to just go, I mean, I don't want to belabor something here, but prohibiting the procurement and purchasing cards is a great idea, with one exception, student activity funds. Sometimes, the board is the overseer of anything that is a student activity account.
Right.
And there are times when there is fundraising that does generate money and it's put into an account. And I've seen that type of, the management of those funds is kind of left up to the club or the athletic group that's doing it. And I've actually seen them give gifts, gift cards to, in recognition of excellent service, So I think I would add prohibit procurement and purchasing cards for school district purchasing purposes.
Right.
So that it's clear that, there's a, it's not saying student activities also, even though that is under the umbrella of your authority to oversee. So I'm not exactly sure what would be the best wording, but if you understand where I'm
So
headed with
to
that.
create an exception in those cases.
Right.
Maybe even add the word, I don't know, Griff, I'll leave you to
Come up with
come up
language.
with the
Yeah.
right language there.
All right, so we'll bring that back for another first reading at the next meeting. Great. Moving on, policy 5:125, personal technology and social media usage and conduct. From my understanding, Griff, there is no change to this policy as well.
No. And
Mr. Tofano, would you like to speak on it all, or are you? Okay. Okay. I believe the reason it's on there is they wanted to point out number 4, where it talks about protecting student privacy rights. It was mentioned to staff at the beginning of the year. So that was something that was reinforced. Is there anything else about that policy we wanted to mention?
no, I think
Okay.
that takes care of it.
Any questions? Nope. Policy 6:235, access to electronic networks. Again, there's no change to the policy, but the administrative procedures are being updated, or?
We're doing another compare.
Right.
Another set of administrative procedures that we received against the ones that were developed. Mary Rosen was involved in the initial one that we developed. But since then, there's been another administrative procedure that's come in, and we're going to do a compare and contrast on that as well.
And then you'll have those for us at the next.
Correct.
Okay,
Have it ready for October 20th? Okay.
great. I believe that's the end of my portion, unless anybody wants to talk more policy. All right. I'll symbolically pass it to you.
We're going to begin the education committee portion of the meeting. I'd like to introduce Meryl Brownlow, Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction.
Good evening, everybody. I think I get the stage tonight. We're gonna try to get it done in 45, but I can't promise it'll happen, but we'll try. Don's gonna set up the PowerPoint while we're getting started here. The way I organized your packet tonight was hopefully that every handout is systematically behind what I'm gonna be speaking about, so that you can just follow through on each of the attachments in your board packet and your board book. And so the first thing that we're going to be addressing tonight is a district goal update and some tentative action plans. As the strategic plan unfolds, we'll probably be coming back and revisiting curriculum and instruction with respect to how the strategic plan becomes developed with the community input. So these goals were adopted based on what we know within the district without that plan being fleshed out. So as Don gets that up, there we go. the first goal had to do with fully aligning our curriculum and assessment framework and working on that multi-tiered system of support, also known as RTI, to maximize student success. And the first objective that you saw in the action plan backup pages that I provided to you had to do with the ELA and math specifically. And while we have used Sync Solution last year and continue to use it this year in terms of our alignment of objectives and resources, we're still doing some analysis around that and identifying our gaps, and particularly in the area of mathematics and especially K-5. And so we are doing that evaluation of that resource and where we're at with that. There will be a full staff survey going out on the Institute Day Friday to get everyone's perspective. I had reported out on the CCAT team's perspective initially, and we talked about wanting everybody's input as we decide for the future what our permanent curriculum warehouse will look like. So as part of Friday's activities, there will be a survey to all staff on Sync Solution and where we're at. Also, as part of that alignment, we really need to begin to develop the assessment framework a little more locally. And that work, you'll see there's crossover between that and the para plan for student growth, because we're going to be using local common assessments as our student growth model for para. And so we're really dovetailing those two initiatives together to make it manageable. So within the alignment work, I'm ultimately responsible for the curriculum documents that will be developed, whether they remain in Sync Solution or whether we develop a local framework for the curriculum moving forward. And you'll see that timeline that I put on there for that all to be hammered out is 17, 18, because it's going to take us another year to really get the assessment piece in place, which should drive those documents. But all certified staff are actually involved in this process because everybody's working in grade level teams and in departments to develop the assessment framework that's going to continue to drive our instruction. So there's a lot of training that's been going on with the para action team in preparation for turning around that training to the staff. I gave you a sample agenda of Friday's activities for that continued alignment work. I will need those back. I made exactly enough copies for the staff, so it's just as an item of artifact for you to see how I lay things out, what the presentations look like, and how I interact with staff. The first couple of pages are some procedural things with respect to professional development that are changing to just give us more accountability around how people apply for workshops and travel guidelines for when they travel away to workshops. And then the presentation is behind that. So a lot of work being done in assessment right now. Yes.
I'd like you just to expand a little bit on about what you mean by assessment.
So what we're doing is we're looking at our outcomes based on the standards.
Okay.
Right? And what we're asking teams and departments to do is develop some common assessments that all teachers at a grade level or within 7th grade social studies or 8th grade science.
So these are student assessments?
Correct.
Okay, and not teacher assessments,
correct,
not administrator assessments. Okay.
Correct. To assess student learning, because what we're doing is we have to evaluate teacher effectiveness with respect to student learning.
Okay.
So by developing common assessments, not only will we be able to evaluate teacher effectiveness with student learning, but we will also be able to look at what programs are working, what strategies are working. We'll be able to collaborate and capitalize on best practices when we look at student achievement data.
So it's pretty comprehensive.
It is. It's a big test. So we're starting out with 2 per area, 2 per grade level, and that work will continue to be done over the next couple of years. It's time intensive work. So that's what we're looking at in ELA and math with those shifts. So that, Mary Rose, you just segued perfectly into to the attachment I have on there about the professional development for the math and the consortium proposal that's there. So we've aligned objectives to standards and we've loaded some resources. And this past summer, the middle school math team had the opportunity to get professional development in the shifts in practices. And the K-5 math committee that I've developed, who are going to be working voluntarily based on the new contract to support the curriculum adoption. And I have 10 people all raring to go.
Great.
So I'm really excited about that. Even with the change, they're sticking with me, so I'm happy. But they actually asked me for some professional practice PD in terms of the shifts in their K-5 instructional world. They get the standards and the outcomes, but they haven't had that professional development, and what does that look like in a classroom per se? And that when we look at 5 essentials next month, at the next meeting, you'll see that quality professional development is one of the areas that they're hungry for, just making sure that what they're implementing from a practice perspective is in alignment with the intention of the new standards. So the consortium at UIC and West 40 offers a collaborative opportunity to get those 10 teachers the training that they can also then turn around to the rest of the district and the teams, because I have representatives across K-5 and across buildings, so that we were working smarter, not harder. And the way they developed the series is that no more than 3 teachers will be out on a given day. So you're not looking at 20 subs in a day across the district, or anybody being out for 5 days at a time. It's 4 days from now through March. April, May is the last one, but that one will help us just with the writing part. And it's 1 day every couple months, and it's 3 teachers at a time out of the 10. So you have 3 one day, 3 another day, 3 another day. I really am trying not to impact classrooms and compromise instruction and all those things that we all care about and worry about, but some of this stuff just can't get done outside a school day or on an institute day, because you need them to turn training around to the fuller staff on an institute day. So
Will they be turning that training around on an institute day?
January 15th, we will be working with some math practice training, and they'll also be working in their grade level teams as they develop the assessments, and then also vetting the resources. When we finally adopt a K-5 core resource, they would be responsible then for helping us to turn that around with the resource. So, yeah, it's a good group. It's a group committed to math that really want to do it right and do it well. It's a big investment. If we're looking at a core resource adoption, I don't want them to go into this without feeling incredibly knowledgeable about what they're vetting, because there is a rubric that's from the National Council of Mathematics that we're going to be utilizing with the resource, and so they need to be well versed in what they're looking for in those programs, because everyone can call themselves Common Core. All you do is align topically in your Common Core line.
Right.
But I want them to be able to intelligently vet the content. So that's why I'm asking for that. There's a budget line already in place that it can be absorbed in very easily. Dr. Gannon, before he left, was anticipating more work around alignment, so there is a budget line there that will absorb this, and I think it's actually a very fiscally responsible decision with the amount of access we will have to support, because it comes not just with those 4 days for each teacher, but it comes with ongoing work with me, with our team, and in June when we go to actually write some curriculum documents. So.
Have you had experience with this?
2 districts that I'm affiliated with have. River Forest is using them really heavily, and there's 4 other districts signed up. Oak Park just picked them up to do their entire district because of their size. And then there's a couple more in this area that are also utilizing their services. It's a unique PD opportunity, and it didn't really get well publicized, but the districts that got in there and capitalized on it are seeing already improvement in their student achievement results, because the practices are changing. So
How long have some of these districts been involved?
this initiative started 2 years ago. So I think it would be a really beneficial partnership. And one of our teachers, our math interventionist, Alicia Patterson at Central, actually experienced this in another district and has been through it and said, I'm so happy you're thinking of going in this direction, because of the benefit she saw in the training. And she's pretty well versed if you speak with her regarding math. She knows her stuff. So
Great.
So that's part of this. Wanted to get it out there for you all. So that, in October, we could take action on it at the board meeting. Are there questions on that at all at this point? Okay, so I'm wrapping some things all together as we move through this stuff. Next on that list was RTI and the alignment with respect to RTI. And Randy, you've posed some questions around that I'm going to address in this part of the presentation. There is a document link to all the work that we've accomplished on that action plan template. You saw some October 2015, deadlines for the first couple of objectives under the deliverables. And we are there, and it's October, so I'm very happy about that. The interventionists worked really, really hard, psychologists, math interventionists, reading specialists, myself, and then we met with the leadership team, and we've rolled this out to staff. And you'll see in the document that I provided to you for RTI, a multi-tiered system of support. So this is the cover of it. I think you all have it in your board book. We first identified our philosophy and wrote a philosophical statement on the front page about what RTI, or the multi-tiered system of support, should look like in District 96 and continue to look like. And our motto at the bottom is a really important one. Our universal screening process, which we've now really streamlined, is to flag students for consideration. So this is a fluid process. It's a conversation. It's not a black and white data point and you put students in a tier. You come together with the data, it flags a student for consideration, the team has a conversation, because beyond those standardized assessments, we want to know how the student's performing in the classroom. And we don't come to the table and say, oh, in my gut, I think. We come to the table with classroom-based work to say, here's a typical peer, here's the student that I'm concerned about, so that if the data is not reflecting in the standardized tests what we know about the student, we can still have the conversation. So universal screening shouldn't eliminate a student from accessing services that is demonstrating problems in the classroom or struggles in the classroom. And it also shouldn't automatically include a student who is not demonstrating difficulty in the classroom, but the standardized score doesn't reflect necessarily what we know. So it's a conversation and then a recommendation. And the reason I'm spending so much time on that is because when you look at the supporting documents behind there and you see the levels, you see now that we've leveled within Tier 3 from the neediest to the least needy, and same thing in Tier 2. Those recommended levels of service within those tiers are, again, guidelines. That doesn't mean that every student that shows up as 2B would be 60 to 90 necessarily in kindergarten. We might do something less or more based on what the needs are. The needs drive the service. So that's what's really critical for you to remember with RTI. So one of the questions, Randy, you had posed was, how many times would Tier 2 or Tier 3 students be seen? And you see a minute range in there on those recommendations, and it's broken down by grade level, so you see each grade level is broken down separately. When you look at those minutes, typically a Tier 3C student would be daily, probably even a 3B. But again, it's not cookie cutter. It's really based on the program they're getting and the need that's being identified. So that was one of your questions.
What's a kite? What is
We'll get to kite in a minute. That's the kindergarten intervention program.
Okay.
So I'm going to get to that last because I have a proposal for that one. The minutes of intervention, which you asked about, again, it varies. I can't say every 2-tier student's going to get these minutes. It's depending on what intervention we're utilizing, what service provider is interacting with that student, and what that student's needs are. In most cases, Randy, your other question was, are people specialists and trained to deliver interventions? Typically, the people delivering them will be the reading specialist, the math interventionist, or a classroom teacher. So RTI is not always just extra time. Sometimes, especially at like Tier 2A, it's a smaller group within the general education setting where you're just doing some targeted support or reteaching to boost that student, and that would be delivered by a classroom teacher outside of like the 60-minute block and another 20-minute block. Maybe they're pulling a small group. So that can happen. There are also some programs, something like Read Naturally, which is a fluency intervention, which you can easily train a paraprofessional or even a parent volunteer to deliver because it's very scripted and it doesn't require specialized training other than how do you administer the tech program, because it's a tech-based program. So there are certain interventions where you don't want to have your reading specialist sitting with something like Read Naturally when it doesn't take their expertise or skills to deliver. You'd rather have them face-to-face with students and have someone else working with Read Naturally. And lastly, you asked about consistency and uniformity, and that's what this guideline is supposed to provide. Now, when I provide data to you on how we're servicing the students and how they're progressing, you're going to get data on, we just finished most of the data days. We have a few more this coming week. Casimir is tomorrow at Blythe. So we're working through the data right now. And once we get all the students identified for services, I'll be reporting on the levels within the tiers, and then in January, we'll look at those same kids. How are those kids that we identified in the fall moving through their tiers in the winter and then again in the spring? And then we'll be adding kids also, but we'll keep that separate from this pure data cohort.
So this will be the beginnings of tracking cohorts?
Correct. And then in the spring, what will be very nice is at the spring data meetings, we will identify kids to start services in the fall. And then when we fall benchmark, all we'll have to do is tweak it. So services won't have to wait till mid-October to get started. We will have a system where we could just continuously service and make adjustments as we continue to get data.
So the mid-October is this year.
This year, and then next year it won't wait.
We will start.
We'll start first week of school.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So, okay, that brings me to KITE. So last year, the KITE intervention program was 1 day a week for each building for kindergartners that were at risk. This year, facility space is making us rethink a little bit of everything because we don't have empty classrooms in every building to be able to deliver a full-blown half-day program even 1 day a week somewhere. So we started talking about the model and what does it look like. And if you're really talking about the research around early intervention and bang for your buck, our kindergartners who are at risk are the kids we should really be servicing the most in terms of getting them ready for that full day experience in school. So we looked at the Title I budget again, because you remember I redid everything and the additional allocation came in, and we looked at what we had available in terms of services and space. And Blythe has a classroom available, and then Central has a classroom in the afternoon from the half-day kindergarten teacher there. And so we are recommending that we beef up our kindergarten intervention program to service students 4 days per week. And the way we would have to do it is through combined site-based intervention. So if you look at the brochure that I gave you with respect to KITE, the current reality was that early intervention works, that we lacked equity last year in the AM and PM intervention program because we didn't have a way to service the PM kids in the AM. We ended up servicing them right before their class by the reading specialist for a part of the time, and then by the KITE teachers a little bit of the time, and then the KITE teacher pushed in. So there was no real pull-out AM service. So there was a lack of equity. So, and this year, our current reality is our facility space is also limited just across the schools. So we would like to maximize this, and our proposed program recommendation is that once we universally screen kindergartners, which we did push back because it was a little too early, and what you were getting was kids who were just anxious the first few weeks of school. So by waiting, kindergarten benchmarking is going to start now. We'll have a more secure grip on who really is reflecting what they know and don't know to be ready for intervention. And so then we would be identifying them at the end of October, and we would begin to service them November through the end of the school year. And Blythe and Ames students who attend AM kindergarten would attend a PM KITE at Blythe. Students who attend Central and Hollywood in the morning would attend a PM session at Central. So everyone would go home for lunch, which is what they had to do last year also. And then the PM students from Central and Ames, and since Central is our Title I building, would be serviced at Blythe in the AM in the classroom space that we have open. And because it's Central's Title I at-risk students, we can fund that position with Title I dollars. So we would be recommending that we fund a 0.28 FTE through that Title I grant to have that teacher work from November through June, partial year. So it's not a full year position, it's an intervention position. And we would be able to cover the entire salary, and there's no benefits because the person's not working full time. And then the program could run 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday. Thursday, there's art in the classroom, so that's why we selected those days of the week. The obstacle or challenge that we identified was the kinder kids who are over at the Park District, and I spoke with the directors of the program over there, and we've already had one collaborative conversation, which is really nice, over the phone. It was great. They have a certified early childhood teacher over there that delivers their program. So we talked about if we have students that are in KinderCare and would qualify for KITE, because of the way their lunch program works and their lunch fees, they wouldn't be able to access our program, but we would collaborate if the parents gave us permission with that teacher over there, and she'd be willing to look at what deficits we were identifying, and she would like to mirror what we might be doing in terms of skills. So that was the only real obstacle that we ran into when we were looking at redefining the program. Now,
What is the Kinder Kids?
to Park District across
It's like
the
a half day
street.
enrichment through the
Yeah.
Park District.
For every day? So-
Yeah, they have it. Well, they're off on Mondays, which
yeah.
is interesting. Yeah, so we might have some parents that want to access it just on Mondays because they don't actually host it on Mondays, and we would take that. If we could take the child one day a week and they'd be at Kinder Kids the rest of the week.
Is this at the church?
Yes,
Yeah,
it's held across the
Okay.
street.
There's just a problem with transporting kids and lunch program, and they had some objection to, because of the way they fund their program, to be there in the afternoon. You have to be there to get lunch.
Right.
So I don't want to interfere with
Right.
But this would be a really nice intensive opportunity for our at-risk students to get 4 days and 2.5 hours a day. Granted, it's site-based, which is a little, I know in the past there was some rub around that historically, but that was when the students were staying through for lunch, which we did not do last year and which we're not
We haven't done it
recommending
yet,
for this either. So if you support this recommendation, that .28 would be officially approved on the October 20th consent agenda board meeting. But I wanted to be
Even
able
if it's
to.
grant money, you still have to
It's-
approve.
You still have to approve it even if it's coming through the grant.
Right.
Well, we have to approve the position.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Correct. And
And the use of the monies in that.
yeah, and the leadership team talked about the sustainability piece, and we talked about, this year we put the parapro at Hauser, and all things being weighed out, April said, I can take a half-time parapro if it means sustaining this .28 kite teacher year to year for the grant. Because your grant dollars are always
Right.
a little different maybe. So, questions on that? Okay.
I just have one comment about the kite program. It's basically reflects how it's been done in the past. I know it's been a problem that parents have not been able to participate for the ones that work during the day because they can't do the pickup, drop back off. So I know that all-day kindergarten is constantly a thing that's on the itinerary, but that's something to think of too. If in the meantime, I don't know what's ultimately going to happen with that in the facilities review, is to somehow reconfigure the program so that we can accommodate everyone.
Yeah, and that's why with the KinderCare, and I hear you, Rachel, that's why at least I tried to call over there and see what I could do with their facility, but there's other programs where kindergartners aren't with us, where the parents are accessing other programs to get the full day. It's
Yes, I was one of those.
I was one of those too, if it makes you feel any better. I don't know that it does. My kid couldn't go to kindergarten in her district either for the same reason at the time. But yeah, no, that's a conversation probably. It's a facility issue too.
Right, I know, yeah.
So anyway, I'm happy to revisit that conversation sometime down the road.
All right.
So questions on any of that? RTI, interventions, any of that at this point?
You answered all my questions.
Okay,
All right, thank you very much.
Okay. So,
I have one more RTI question
yes,
though.
go.
How does the new framework, were we change from the framework we had going
Awesome question.
earlier?
Okay, so prior to this year, there was no concrete delineation between the time and intensity of a tier 2 versus a tier 3 student. So there was often times where tier 2 and tier 3 kids were getting the same level of service in terms of minutes and intensity. So we wanted to be really clear about starting with our neediest students and then looking at where we were drawing the line around norms and cut scores. So we did, like 2A didn't exist. That was a pull-out before, all the way up to the 45th percentile, and those kids are in the average range, which took minutes away from being able to service your lowest
Right.
level kids.
Okay.
So we're supporting the teachers in this 2A transition because that's the biggest shift, is 2A's in the classroom. So how do I do a flexible math group? So the math interventionists are coaching teachers now and supporting them with materials, resources, and models for meeting that 2A group in the classroom to be able to then intensify the needs for the lower level. And we'll look, the question came up about local norms versus national norms. We've been using national norms in 96 for a couple of years. I want to look at that first before we decide whether or not we should move to local norming to draw the lines. So we've got to get it up and running and then evaluate. So it will take a couple of years for us to really.
What do you mean by local norms? Just Riverside?
Like, correct.
Just
How
our
students in
district?
Riverside, where their percentile rankings are versus rankings nationally.
All right.
On those standardized measures.
Okay, and then just a quick question,
Sure.
with the universal screening, how is that different, what you're doing now
So,
from what we did last year?
What we did was we looked at the developmental appropriateness of each of the screeners, because we were using some screeners all the way up through 5th grade, which are really time intensive to administer, which required a lot of sub coverage, but really weren't flagging what we needed.
A screener like a test or an
Like a
assessment?
Pontus and Pinnell assessment.
Right. Mhm.
That's a very time intensive 25-minute reading assessment that really, they were getting subs half day per practically
Was that
per
where they
grade
were
level.
pulling them out?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
So we
One to
took
one.
that down to K through 2. If we haven't flagged those kids on that assessment by 2nd grade, then we're not doing something right. So 3 through 5, we're only giving that assessment when needed, if we need something more diagnostic for a kid. But we're not giving it to every 3rd through 5th grader because we don't need to.
We should have flagged them by then.
Right. So we made some adjustments that way, like the screener developmentally appropriate to the information we need to then plan for instruction.
And how many screening assessments do you have?
So it depends on the grade level. There's a chart. In kindergarten, there's a lot more. Kindergarten, 1st grade, because there's a lot of subtests within the math and the reading. There's, early numeracy, oral number counting, number identification, missing number. But then when you get up into the upper grades, we do a computation probe for math, and we have the MAP assessment. And in reading, we do a fluency probe and the MAP assessment. And then that's our flag. And then from there, we look at classroom-based work. So it's a lot more targeted. We took a lot of the assessment out at 3 through 5 that we don't read.
So, made some changes.
We did. We did. Good. Okay. So, any other questions on that?
No, thank you.
Okay, so the teachers, it's an adjustment. We're running into some hiccups and just in terms of what's going to be our communication plan and how are we going to inform parents and those things. But ultimately, I think Tasmira's out in the audience. It's going pretty smoothly, and from what we saw at leadership, and people seem very supportive. Yeah, so we're excited. I'm excited. I don't know about everybody. I get excited about this stuff. Just saying.
That's why we hired you. We want you to be excited about it.
How excited are you?
I'm really excited, Randy. Just ask Griff. I told him if he tells me to stop talking, I get excited. Okay, the second goal that we had talked about at the beginning of the year had to do with this system of evaluation that promotes success. So Mary Rose, this goes back to what you were saying earlier about, yes, we're developing common assessments to measure student learning, but ultimately for teacher evaluation, we also need those kinds of assessments to measure teacher effectiveness in terms of growing students. So this works hand in hand that way. So again, as far as accountability, this is the superintendent becomes ultimately accountable for teacher evaluation with me as their sidekick. Those two positions ultimately are the ones held accountable. But all certified staff are participating in the development of the assessment tools. The union here has been incredibly supportive. The collaborative commitment around this is huge. We are going to spend all day Friday working on this, and again in February, all day Institute Day working on this. And I suspect that our Institute Days over the next couple of years will be devoted to, maximizing that common assessment platform and being sure we have them across all trimesters for all units. So we have that in motion. All staff received the Danielson training on the first Institute Day, and you saw the feedback from that in your last board meeting. We are now going to do additional framework, professional practice training, which is the other part of the teacher evaluation model in those 90-minute meetings that we agreed to in the contract. So those will happen with a very similar framework in the buildings, and we may do hangouts with some job-alike groups through technology as we're implementing that. And then 2 full days on growth assessment will also be a part of the plan. And then the PAC committee is continuing to meet to develop the additional components and the comprehensive package that's surrounding some of those forms that you saw the end of last year before Dr. Gannon left. So they're coming up with a philosophical statement, a timeline, all the pieces that I remember you asked about, Mary Rose, and like how is it different? It will be a much larger document that will.
So there'll be some supporting things behind the
There will
form.
be a lot.
What is the PET committee?
Oh, I'm sorry, Jeff, thank you. The
I'm
Para
sorry.
Action Team.
Okay.
It'll take you about a year and a half.
And honestly, their work is happening outside of the school day. I'm not pulling them during the school day because there's about 12 of them. They've been meeting for 2-hour meetings after school, and they're doing it. Now they're doing work in between on their own and meeting on their own time. So I need to know how committed they are to really getting the work done and not being on.
So it has nothing to do with my partner. Pat.
No.
Never mind.
You wanted me to laugh.
Keep
so I
going, keep
didn't.
going.
This is like Laurel and Hardy over here, right?
Yeah, I didn't get anything good there. That was-
You only give me 45 minutes, Griff. I don't have time for jokes. Okay, so moving right along, the next topic on my agenda tonight has to do with Aaron's Law. And, you know, I inherited, along with Pam, some of the history around it, and I tried to do my homework around it, and Pam brought me up to speed and learned a lot about the concerns that were brought to the table around the implementation last year. And so I take this kind of stuff pretty seriously, and Pam and I worked pretty collaboratively. This really is a curriculum department initiative, and so Pam picked up the ball last year kind of in the middle of things. But it is a curriculum initiative, so it really needs to be in my department, and I need to be the one sort of spearheading it with her support, because it does involve the social workers. But, so coming into the district, I know there was some discontent around the program last year in terms of how it rolled itself out. Last year, it was the Cook County Sheriff's Department program that was utilized here. I went to the Aaron's Law website and also reached out to the local group around sexual abuse and domestic violence for recommendations on programs, and also went to the website. And these 3 programs are the ones, in addition to the YCAP program, which actually there's not a Cook County leg of. They deliver that in DuPage. There's not a Cook County branch. The one that exists was spotty, and I couldn't even get somebody to return my phone call. So I gave up on that one. But the Cook County Sheriff Department is the one, and it's only K through 5, so it doesn't have a 6 through 8 component, and we're required to deliver this 6 through 8. So there would be no vertical alignment with that program, and after looking at the video and hearing about the presentation last year, I really wanted to expand our look. I have child lures here. This was another one that's been research-based and out there. This one requires 7 to 14 lessons, depending on the grade level, on sexual abuse. So in order to deliver it. So it would be a lot of instructional time to get, and just one aspect of our social emotional learning standards, to get the work done in the classroom around this topic. The third program that's out there is called Be Seen and Heard by Victor Piccini, and he is been adopted in River Forest, Rosemont, Northbrook, Algonquin, Lombard, North Barrington, Mount Prospect, Palatine, and several others, but those are the ones that you would have heard of nearby. But he is the program that I am bringing forth as a recommendation. I'm going to show you a video in a minute where he will share his philosophy on the program. He's presented to districts with similar demographics. I went out and saw him in Rosemont. I saw a 2nd, a 4th, and an 8th grade presentation. Casimira saw some elementary presentations, and April went and saw all 3 middle school levels in Oak Lawn. We visited there. I met with Victor personally, gave him some feedback on some of the things that I had slight, minor concerns about. He's like, I'll adapt anything you want. There was just one story he shared that I felt, I don't think we need it here. And he was like, I'll remove it. He's endorsed by the Illinois PTA, the National PTA, and the Domestic Violence Group. He's presented to over 500,000 children. He is very willing to come out here and do a parent night the week of February. It would be Monday, February 8th, I think is the date that we chose if we get the recommendation to move forward. He structures his presentations by grade level. The only 2 grades he would ever combine are K and 1. He likes to handle the grade levels separately because developmentally he really scaffolds his presentations. And he changes his language, and you'll see that. So like K1, he'll talk about safe touch and unsafe touch. And then when he gets into second, he calls it appropriate and inappropriate touch. And then same in third and fourth. And then in fifth is when he starts using the term sexual abuse. He won't use it before then. You know, it's very developmentally appropriate, very scaffolded. Kids, I don't know how you can he talks about this in his video, which I'm going to show you in a second, but you know, he makes it fun for the kids, which I don't know how you make this topic fun, but he uses song and he uses a very calming presence around the topic, so they get really engaged with just like this trusted hero and who do you talk to when you have a problem, and it wasn't threatening at all. When I watched the kids, I was really curious to see how they would respond, and I mean, it was like any other assembly I've been to. The kids were fine. There was nothing creepy about it. It was very appropriate. There would be a letter home from me right after winter break early on in January explaining what our program would be looking like, how Victor presents, links to the website, the brochure that I gave you from Victor, I would put out there for all parents, and it has links attached to it. They can go vet it as much as they want. There's testimonials on his website. And then there would be a very clear opt-out option. We are mandated to keep our kids safe and to deliver the instruction, but I'm not going to be, you know, trying to persuade a parent to have their child participate if there's some personal objection, right? That's not my place. I am responsible and mandated to deliver this program to keep kids safe. So the opt-out would be very clear and transparent. You don't sign a form, you contact your building principal if you don't want your child to participate. Much like the program at 5th grade when we talk about human growth and development, right? So it would be a similar kind of thing. So I'd like to show you, I know the video is 7 minutes. I still have, Griff, it's 8:22. I want to show this because I do think it speaks to...
Start her up.
My last two slides are really quick, but I think this is important. And I'm sorry, I don't have a speaker, so I'll turn this
You can't protect it?
Hi everybody, it's Victor Piccini, the founder of Be Seen and Heard online, a sexual abuse awareness and empowerment program. Thank you so much for joining me.
The PowerPoint's not coming down, but it's on my computer, so that's weird. Come on, Mr. Technology, I need you. There he is. Like I sold it myself, I'm proud.
It's going to be a short video. I just want to say thank you and to say hello and to just welcome you to this Be Seen and Heard program. Your district is implementing an Aaron's Law program for their students. The Aaron's Law program is based on a law that was passed in Illinois a few years ago by a young girl started by the name of Erin Marin. And the law states that pre-K to 12th grade, there has to be some kind of educating students on sexual abuse awareness and sexual abuse strategies, and ultimately about helping kids to keep their bodies safe. And also, the very small percentage, even though it's a big percentage, of students that have been sexually abused, it's about helping them have a voice, to not be afraid to share if something's going on in their life that is hurting them. Now, my story, I'll keep it simple, but I'm a survivor of sexual abuse. I was abused by a family friend when I was 8 years old. And my abuser told me, do not tell your parents, they're going to be mad at you. So I believed them. I was 8 years old. I didn't want my parents to be mad at me. And I went home, and my father was a very violent alcoholic. And he would say things all the time that hurt us. You know, he was verbally abusive and physically. He hit a lot. And I remember him looking at me in my eyes, right, straight eyeball to eyeball, my father, my role model, saying, Victor, you should be seen and not heard. And I thought about that, and I'm like, wow. So my father's giving me permission not to talk. I should be seen and not heard. And my abuser is telling me not to talk. So by two people, I was told not to talk. And so I believed both of them for 11 years of my life. And the reason, this is where I come from, and this is what it comes down to, the reason for this program is just in case there are any victors out there, any kids out there that have gone through what I went through or what Aaron has gone through, we're here to say, you know what, you're not alone, right? You're not this person, you've experienced this, and now you can't do anything about it. You can use your voice. You can raise that hand and say, I need to talk to somebody. See, no one ever came to my school to tell me that. So I thought I was strange, I thought I was weird, I thought I was the only person in this world that this happened to. So that's the foundation for this program. But ultimately, it's to teach children, how to stay safe. Now, quickly, let me just break it down for you. In the kindergarten, first grade, and second grade program, I talk about safe touch and unsafe touch. I never once bring up the word sexual abuse. It's not in my vocabulary at all. So it's safe touches, safe secrets, unsafe secrets, and I teach them a great tool called the Trusted Hero. It's about getting them to identify a couple of people in their life that they can turn to if they ever have any problems at all. Okay, anything, even beyond abuse. Okay, again, this is an empowerment program. This is a self-esteem building program. This is a program to help them raise their confidence. Okay, when we get to the third graders and the fourth graders, I use a phrase called inappropriate touch. Let me tell you this. I first talked to the third graders and fourth graders about a term called bullying. I define it. See, every student knows what bullying is, but not every student knows what sexual abuse is. So I want to start simple. We start with what they know. They know what bullying is, and then I use that as an anchor, and I build off of that. Again, sexual abuse is never used. Those two words are never used in the third and fourth grade program. I use inappropriate touch as it pertains to your private body parts. So I keep it simple, and very appropriate.
He's going to
So
reference
that's the third and
online,
fourth
but
grade.
we're going to do face-to-face.
We talk about safe secrets and unsafe secrets, and again, we talk about the Trusted Hero. Then when I get to the fifth graders and beyond, I use bullying as the anchor, and then I define what sexual abuse is. It's important as they get older that they know what that is. And most kids don't know what sexual abuse is until that day. And most kids, not most kids, but a lot of the children in my audiences will go and they get uncomfortable. And I get it, but I address it right away. I don't ignore the fact that they're maybe a little uncomfortable. And I stop the program. Now, you're not going to see this, that your children, this has all been pre-recorded. But when I go to a school that's live, I'll get students that kind of look uncomfortable, or they'll make a face, or they'll giggle if I'm talking about, private body parts. And I say, hey, this is a little uncomfortable, but we're here together, right? And we're going to get through this together. So just so you know, the way I talk about Aaron's Law to students is I do it through a fun and entertaining way. I was told originally when I came up with this idea that you cannot make this fun. How can you make teaching sexual abuse awareness fun? Well, I've been speaking for 15 years, and you better believe in every one of my programs, it's fun, it's entertaining, it's interactive, because that's how students learn. I use music, right, to get them engaged, to get them to smile, and when they leave, they're more empowered than they were before they came. That's it. Simple. They're not threatened by anything, they're not scared by anything. Now, there's a possibility that there might be some red flags that go up during the program. And that's where, as a community, we have to work together and to help each other out. And that's where the social workers come in. They'll be in the classroom, watching their students, your children, watching this program on video, online.
Actually, we'll be
and
face-to-face,
they will be there to see if any
online.
red flags go up. Now, during my presentations, I do have a lot of time where I'll ask the instructor to pause the video so that they can have a conversation, a brief conversation. For example, what's an example of a safe touch? Well, in my audience, when I'm recording, I have children answer the question, but then I ask the instructor to pause it and to go around and to have the students answer that question. It's just important for the kids to be interactive, not just having them sit there and watch a video. I want them to be engaged. That's what it's all about. So I just wanted to introduce myself. I wanted to bring you peace of mind. That's my goal, to bring parents and teachers peace of mind when it comes to teaching this very, very important law. So with that said, if you have any questions at all, my email is below the video here. There's some contact information. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. My staff will be happy to help you, and we'll go from there. So again, it's an honor and a privilege to be given the opportunity to share this important message with you and your whole school community.
Okay, so we would do the face-to-face program, not the online program. This video was specifically put together for his online program. But I wanted you to see it because he really speaks to the message. And so I wanted to give you opportunity to give me feedback if there's any feedback. I know there are some concerned parents here, one of which was on the phone, and sort of shared my philosophy. And so I want to be able to address any other hesitations before we move forward with the recommendation, because we are mandated. I do like the fact that this is a K-8 continuum. I do like the fact that he makes himself very available at the parent presentation. He will actually go through the child's presentation. He doesn't just sit there and say, this is what I'm going to talk about. He goes through the presentation so that parents can ask questions and can get the answers they need to make a good decision about whether or not they feel like they want their child to be a part of it. He has a book that he gives the kids bookmarks, and then they can download the book that he shares the story around. And so this is my recommendation for.
How long a presentation is it?
It's 30 minutes for K through 4, and then 5 through 8 it's 40.
So you bring all the kids in the sort of set age group to like the gym or something?
He'll go
like
to
that,
each
or-
building.
Each building.
And he'll do each grade level at a time on a
Okay.
single day. So we'll all be in the same week. He'll do it the week of February 22nd. He'd go one building Monday, one Tuesday, one Wednesday, one Thursday, and the junior high on Friday. And we talked about wanting to do the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders in smaller groups, like half. But this year, because of the way the schedule works here, we're going to do it in a larger group and just bring them as close as we can forward to be interactive with Victor. And then next year, maybe we'll try to, if we have a team model, we'll try to do it. But he can do it.
Meryl, when you bring forward your recommendation, just include, because either his qualifications or if there's some requirements that the state requires that he has to fulfill.
Right, well, so it's interesting. The state doesn't have a lot of requirements on how you deliver this. You get to decide as a school district how you want to deliver it. So what I looked for is presentations or content that was vetted by other organizations that I trust. So, the Aries Law Group themselves, the Illinois PTA, the National PTA, other schools.
And how long he's been doing this and all?
15 years.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, he has a bunch of other programs that are self-esteem programs, because he's been a motivational speaker for children for 15 years. He has a bullying program, he has a self-esteem program, and this is just one of the programs that he does.
You alluded to some parents having possibly some concerns.
Last year, there were
Last
some
year,
concerns about, I guess, the communication and the rollout of the program, and to some degree, the content. Is that correct and accurate? Are we feeling confident about where?
This has addressed many of the issues that we brought up. We're looking forward to speaking to Victor to maybe, I don't find any concerns right now, but luckily we've had open communications.
I have 2 questions.
Is that, okay, that's okay, right?
It says the week of February 22nd, and specifically with the 5th grade, do they have that health talk by then, or is that?
That happens afterwards,
End of the year.
closer to the spring, right, Casimira? Robert Crown usually happens.
Usually right around like I think we adjusted it last year because of park, but it was around April.
Yeah, around April.
Okay, so it doesn't work like hand in hand with that. I was just
Try to keep
wondering
those things
too much. And then are the girls and the boys together?
For this, they are, and that is the recommendation. He doesn't get into a lot of explicit conversation, and he doesn't identify. He talks about, your private body parts.
Yeah.
He doesn't, and all the presentations I observed were co-ed, and there wasn't really any.
I believe the 5th grade talk is co-ed as well, and the end of the year, the health talk, isn't it?
Just so that you all know, each of us coordinates, Tiffany and I are a representative from each of the 3 elementary schools. We were asked to come and speak on behalf of each school because we were the ones who were involved last year with the concerns that had happened. On what you've shown, I think one of the biggest concerns from a lot of the central parents were the type of terminology that was used. We choose to live in a community of Riverside that is a bubble. Most of these children don't know what the word sexual abuse is. And for a lot of those kids last year, that was their first, rollout of what sex was to them. And a lot of the parents, myself included obviously, were concerned over the fact that we don't want our children to think of sex as dirty. And the way that it was rolled out last year, the things that were shown, how it was discussed, really put a bad taste, I think, in a lot of parents' minds of what their children now perceive.
And it's a hard topic no matter what.
It is.
And I'm not going to say it's not. And we live in a world where, unfortunately, people feel like the kids have to have knowledge to have power. And so that's why there is the opt-out opportunity. If you don't, as a family, decide that your child needs it or is ready for it, that's a personal decision you can make. And I'm never going to try to convince somebody.
No, and I appreciate that, because last year that wasn't transparent. It was not known. The only way parents knew that you were able to opt out was through voice of parents telling other parents, because it wasn't known. So to be able to do that.
But there is a reason the state has mandated it as a curriculum. There is enough concern around safety of kids that, there's a reason why we're mandated to deliver it. So again, it's a personal choice.
How long has this law been in effect?
This is the third year?
3 or 4 years.
2013.
So then we've.
But operationally, last year you definitely were supposed to have something in place K through 8, and we did it K through 5. Riverside did it K through 5, and this year we need to do it K through 8. Yeah, pre-K. I'm sorry, early childhood too. Thank you, Pam. Pre-K, it's just a story. It's a storybook. It's very low key. Anything? Feel free to explore the website. Those of you that were part of this last year, and I know when Courtney called me, I sent all of it out to her, so I'm happy for her to share it. It's the same stuff I would share with all parents. This is brochure right after winter break. I don't want to do it too early because I want people to have consciousness. If we're doing it in February, I'll probably start that communication right after winter break, so there'll be a good enough window for exploration. Okay.
And thanks for sitting through our exciting policy discussion.
Hey now.
Well, and we'll also add the links to the public website before everything goes, because that didn't happen also last year. It was just kind of a.
No, the link to his website will be out there, and the link to, we'll blast everything out via the website in terms of the information and how to access it.
Perfect.
And Facebook as well. And probably through school messenger with a letter from me.
We like that.
Okay, thank you. All right, so that's Aaron's Law. Do you want Pam to check
A quick thing on early childhood.
That was a good segue.
Yeah, we had a report last month, but there was a question raised. Go ahead, Pam.
Some questions regarding early childhood and where we are with the programming. The update that was provided in the board packet last month for the September 15th meeting, that information remains the same. New questions came up though regarding the special education spots. And in our blended classrooms, all 15 of the blended special education IEP spots are filled. And of the self-contained classroom, 6 of those 10 spots are filled. And we presently have students in evaluation and are doing our child find process throughout the year, so those numbers will be growing. And if the IEP numbers increase in the blended classrooms, we will again, in talking with the ISBE, add those on to the waiver that we submitted already.
One last thing, and we're done with education. That's the what? No.
There's a few more things that don't have a slide, but they're not big. Carnegie, Dr. Miller had asked me to update everybody about Carnegie, and the implementation is going as well or better than I would have hoped. If everybody's pretty excited. See, I told you I like this stuff. Teachers are really positive about what's happening with kids in their classrooms. The students actually are saying they like math, even ones that they didn't like. Imagine that. We had a coaching day last week, and it was very close because we did it as a fishbowl. So we took teachers and they observed a lesson in a classroom with a consultant, and then they debriefed the lesson later in that day. So they were able to all get that experience of, what were some of the things that they could change, what were some of the things that were working well, and could have a conversation. I was able to sit in on 2 of the 3 grade levels debriefings and 1 observation, and it was really very cool, and that's the model we're going to use throughout the year. We have a parent night scheduled for October 22nd. The invite's going to go out tomorrow. I wanted to bring it here first, and tomorrow there will be a school messenger blast with the attached invite. We're going to do it as a take the parents through a lesson. So we're going to do like a 20-minute overview of the program and the philosophy. Then they're going to go to classrooms by their grade levels, and they're going to go through a lesson and experience it. So we're really excited. I wanted to show you a little bit of the kids in action. These are really quick, short clips.
And this is 6th through 8th, right? Math
Yes,
night for 6th through 8th.
This is what it looks like now. It's very...
It would be like 8 to 12, which we can
Oh, so like 8 to 12?
Yeah.
That makes more sense. I like the way TJ's over there. Yeah. Oh, is that
The strongest favorite is
So you get the idea, and this is the other one. You see the kids working together. Okay, so those are just short little clips. You see, it's a very hands-on, it's noisy, but it's productive noise, and it's going really well. The kids, this is no stage on the stage, we're not lecturing for 80 minutes. There is some direct instruction portions to it, but then it's the kids hands-on with the math, really thinking through, and I'm excited. So that's the PowerPoint, and then just a couple other updates for the board on professional development. A lot of it I covered, but there's some hot button things happening. So the January Institute Day, so we have October and February, which is student growth and para. The January day that was added, the January 15th, Friday, is going to be a content day where we're going to be dealing with math practices in grades K through 8, because that PD hasn't happened yet across the board. And those are those 8 mathematical practices that are the umbrellas over the standards. We're going to do work on that. The science department's at the middle school is going to start to work on the new science standards, which are slated for formal implementation next year, but we'll be entering a pilot year next year and then implementing. Social studies has new standards that were just adopted by the state, so they need to start reading those. They're not officially in place yet, but they will be. I'm sure the implementation date will be 17-18, so they're going to start to tear those standards apart, get to know those. And then we'll have other job-specific training on that day, department job-specific stuff. CPR training is slated for October 9th for all of our paraprofessionals, so we will have lots of CPR trained staff then within our buildings, which will be nice. And then we do have some individual here and there spotty going out to get information like the science standards PD. So when you do see occasional workshops coming through, ELA Bilingual has some required workshops every year they go to. The reading specialist, here and there, people who don't need subs or people who need to go get some foundational stuff to turn around to teams will be spotty here and there. But you won't see 20 people at a time anymore out on a single day. And you won't see the same people out 20 times in a year because that's not good for kids.
Let me ask about the CPR. Are teachers as well?
So PE teachers are typically CPR certified, but we're taking this opportunity because we have a trainer that will come in and do all our certified staff, and then in January, the PE teachers will get their CPR training for anyone who's not up to date. There's very few that aren't up to date right now.
How about classroom teachers?
It's not a requirement, so we haven't provided that level of training. It's always, best practice to have a few people in each building trained. Yeah. Our nurses are all trained on these.
So the paraprofessionals, is that a requirement?
It's not, but we're offering it as an opportunity so we can have multiple people in buildings that have the training.
I see, okay.
And we have the ability to do that on that day. And most of them work with special needs students, so it's a good background to have.
Sure. Is that combination CPR, AED
yes.
training? Okay.
He'll do the AED. That's how they do it now, in terms of how they deliver it. Okay, EL Bilingual, you'll see some things coming through, and you see one tonight where we're trying to get in compliance, and Mary Rose and I spoke about this a little bit, but we are required, because of our bilingual program, to translate any document that's a formal communication. So that means any letter about map testing or COGAT testing, like the letter that's going out tomorrow, which I'm still having to have translated because we don't have a service we use. We were using a staff member to do our translation. And when I went to the conference, it was highly recommended that we not use staff members because of the liability around the linguistics piece of the translation. So it was recommended that we used a document service for translation. So Strictly Spanish is the one that's most well-known in this area that people have contracted with when I researched with districts that have bilingual programs. So I put the proposal in there to contract with them. They turn things around in 24 to 48 hours, so it's timely. Like I could get them the COGAT letter as soon as you say it's okay, and then they'll have it back to me within 48 hours, and I can get it to those parents in Spanish.
So we'll be looking for the board to act on October 20th.
Correct. Strictly Spanish. So you have the proposal in there.
Quick question, I don't need the answer today, but just wondering, do we know what a budget amount might be for this service on an annual basis? What are our needs in terms of?
Yeah, I'd have, Mary Rose, that's a good question. We come to October 20th. Let me kind of take a look at what documents weren't translated that we would need translated, and obviously there'd be some variability depending on what went out. But I could probably get a guesstimate just based on the kinds of documents were translated in another.
Just kind of get a sense of the activity.
Yeah,
Is
that's a
it
good
like
question.
once a week you need something translated, or?
The motion will have an estimate. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll
you
get
can't
I'll
just
get
act on
yeah, that's a good idea.
something that doesn't cost, right?
I can cost that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll cost that out for you, so you'll have it. And then we can discuss it if it needs discussion. And I'll only look at the things that are mandated for translation.
Well, it's
There's
a
nice to have
requirement.
and there's need to have, so
Yeah, it's a requirement, so you have to do it.
Right. And then lastly, I think I've mentioned this already, but Park is just one session this year, not two. We just want to be very public about that. It will be in April. The window will be in April. And we are still waiting the release of our local scores. I shared sort of the big picture Illinois level last time, but we don't have our local scores yet. And there is a new Illinois State Science Assessment coming to grades 5 and 8, and because of my connections with the DuPage curriculum group, I was able to get my hands on a blueprint because they dug deep into the ISB website and got hands on it. So I was able to get it out to the science teachers so they could start looking at the blueprint of what it's going to be assessing. I'm done.
Not totally. On the 15th, I need 4 board members at least to be
Oh,
here for a
that's
special meeting for a PE waiver hearing. By state law, you cannot have it on the night of a board meeting or a committee of the whole meeting. You have to have it a special standby.
Strategic planning.
Pardon me?
We're here for strategic planning.
It's gonna be the 5 minutes before the strategic
That's
planning
fine.
starts.
I'll do that.
That's why we said 6:25.
Yes.
And 6:30 strategic planning
I'm sure we can
starts.
get 4 of us here.
Yeah,
It's
I
not
do not
gonna
expect
change
large
any of our
crowds
existing-
for
yeah.
PE waiving hearing. I'd be
Let me
surprised.
just also, because
Yeah.
I got this question, Linda and I both got this question. It doesn't change our existing model.
No.
It's just a necessary thing we have to apply.
The legal requirement
It's a
that we
legal
have to.
requirement.
That's why it says 25.
Yes,
I can explain
625, yes, that's right. it says
No, I'm just thinking back to that we did this last year, probably not correctly, but, or it sounds like.
We don't
perhaps-
have a current waiver.
We didn't do it.
Okay, that's my question.
It doesn't exist, right, we have to have it.
And that the waivers are for 5 years or
2
something?
years.
2?
Yeah.
Okay, that pretty much answers my question.
Okay.
And every 2 years it requires the public hearing piece as a part of it.
And the public hearing has to be,
Not on a regular night.
okay.
Now you're done.
Now we're done.
Thank you, Meryl.
thank you. Okay, I need a
That
nap.
concludes our education committee portion. We'll move on to Mr. Regan with the finance portion.
Thank you, Sherry. We'll begin the Finance Committee report, and I'll turn it over to David
It's just
Sellers, the
something else to
Director of
have
Finance
that.
and Operations.
And I'd like to say that I could match the enthusiasm and excitement that Merrill was able to project for
You gotta wake up first.
quite a while. So, let's talk about student accident insurance.
Let's play along.
I'm very passionate
Sorry
about
to raise the bar
insurance.
here for you, Dave.
Yeah, I know, the bar is so high. In my years of being a business official, I've operated in school districts that had this in place. I was a little unpleasantly surprised that it's not here. If you're a member of one of the co-ops for liability insurance in Illinois, one of the most popular that I had previously been a member of, it's mandatory. The objective is to try and help a parent, especially who is in a state of probably emotional turmoil at the reality of a student having been injured. And a friend in need is a friend indeed. How's that for a cliche? You're going to have a parent who is thinking about suing the school district, wondering who's at fault, wondering why was my student injured? Did the student do something wrong, or was the student a victim? All of that emotional turmoil takes place when a student is injured. This allows for only $6,700 a year, allows the school district to say to the parent, we'll take care of your deductible, no matter what. Or if the, my understanding is that this program, 80% of the claims under this policy by the agency that administers it, 80% are for uninsured students,
Right.
students for whom there is no insurance. This will cover up to $25,000 of the medical care for that student. So if a student is uninsured, $25,000. If the student is insured, parent, we're sympathetic to what happened, we'll cover the deductible.
And that would be
That's a good message to be able to send to a parent.
So that's under their health insurance policy that they might get from work or from some other place, right?
We'll cover your deductible. One might argue that a school district can do without it. There are school districts that don't have this in place. I feel a responsibility to at least recommend it to this school board and just express that there are situations where it actually might make a difference between somebody pursuing a phone call to an attorney or, trying to steer an interpretation of what happened to conclude that the school district was at fault.
Right. The only thing that an administrator can say, if without this insurance, you have to prove us negligent, or we're not paying you a cent. I mean, that's the only position and message we have to give. With this, it's a much more compassionate and understanding way of working with parents.
It's a first party. In other words, there's an accident, it pays.
Right.
Without fault. And then the other thing is, you also get the information, it actually gets reported, right? There's kind of a incentive to get more you are able to get more information sooner.
Right.
Potentially.
So those are reasons why for this other 90, CLIC is now about 130 school districts. It's mandatory. If you're a member of that co-op, it's built into your insurance program. We're a member of SKIP, which is a different co-op. It's voluntary. And this school district doesn't have it, so I'd like to bring it forward for October 20th. If between now and then board members have questions about the advisability of this, I welcome any indications of concern. Again, it's only $4 per student, which for this school district is $6,740 some on an annual basis. I can't guarantee it'll be cost effective every year, but I think over a number of years it would definitely be to the school district's advantage.
3 or 4 lawsuits and the savings that we would have on legal costs, you'll take care of that $6,700. That prevents that.
Have we had any lawsuits or costs?
We've had some threats, but so far nothing since I've been here.
Okay.
We've certainly had the injuries.
We definitely have the injuries, yeah.
Okay.
Recently, a tooth went out at one of our schools.
Well,
or somebody threw something.
I was going to say lots of.
Yeah. Okay.
But not a replaceable, or one that needs replacement.
And as I'm sure you will recall, my background is high school and IHSA competition and sports teams. The injuries happen much more regularly in the high school setting, but I think it is also true at the elementary setting.
And when would this be effective?
Within just
30 days?
Immediately.
30 days after we vote on it? Okay.
And this is something that's common, you're saying, in other elementary school districts, this kind of insurance?
Yes.
Sounds like a good idea.
And then the next, Ms. Regan, okay to go on to the next?
Okay to move ahead.
Okay,
Thanks, David.
then, I'm going to just turn it over to Paul Passetti. And Paul, this was an attachment in the materials. You've seen this spreadsheet before. The three, I'd like Paul to zero in on elevator, windows, paving, and then some discussion, but not much, about playgrounds.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right, so we have elevator. Let's start with that. Make sure I got the right one here. All right, so as David mentioned, there's a few projects that he had brought last time to the board. He asked me to put together some proposals for that work. What we talked about doing was the elevator and the window project. We looked at combining those because the logic there is that this work would be most likely performed by a general contractor. So we would package that together to have some incentive for just more bulk of work, get better pricing, and also allows us to get you into that range where our fee goes down by 0.25% to 8% as opposed to 8.25. In terms of so right now what we're looking at is we've been out with my structural engineer, we've taken a look at some things. We're getting a sketch together for staff to cut some holes above the ceiling so we can actually get up and look at the structure, because there's actually a ceiling above the ceiling which is hiding what's up there, so we can't really see, and the existing drawings aren't really telling us a lot. So there really are no existing drawings for that part of the building. We do know there's some electrical lines going through that area that we need to move, so still in that investigative stage, but feel confident that we can get that moving for next summer.
Paul, are the as-built drawings that you may have, are they helpful at all?
Not really, because what we do have, there's really nothing from, that is like, I believe that's the original part of the building. There's really nothing that we've found yet in the archives that tell us much, so.
And there, nothing exists from the last project that may have identified some of these?
Still kind of doing that research right now, so going through all that.
So if you would run into a brick wall up there, you know, where you, someplace where we couldn't proceed with this elevator, would we have time to pursue another alternative?
I believe so. I mean, I think we're gonna know a little bit more probably potentially before the 20th, depending on how quickly we can get the contractor out to cut the hole and take a look at it. So
We want a green light on the 20th on the elevator project. So everything starts moving. So the first day in summer when they can go at it, we want to get the shovels out. So it's not shovels.
So we did notice that in the elevator project, you have a tentative, you have 2 phases on the project. In the elevator project, there's the first phase would finish sometime in mid-August, and then you're tentatively scheduling the second phase to be sometime in mid-September.
Correct, as of right now.
Would that impact, would there be people who be working during the school day then, or how is that?
Well, we're gonna have to work through that still with the contractor, but I'm picturing that we're gonna have to get the demolition, obviously, get that going, get the shaft built. They can probably get some of the larger equipment into the shaft, like the posts and such, before school starts. But then the last piece would be probably constructing the cab. So we'd have to work with the contractors to talk about that. Again, it's very early in the process right now, so obviously we'll refine that as we move forward.
Right.
Certainly want to get some elevator contractors engaged. More so, we did meet with the one gentleman from Anderson.
The elevator contractor needs 4 to 5 weeks. And
correct.
The elevator contractor is not responsible for the shaft or the demolition. Or,
correct.
You know, any site preparation. So this is most likely scenario is that the school year would open with this project undone. The contractors would have to work after hours or on weekends.
Right.
And there would be no disruption to the instructional environment.
Yeah, that would be a
but
problem.
it'll be probably, could be till the end of September before we're actually doing a ribbon cutting on a new elevator that's available for students.
And what about those spaces like the staff work area and things like that? If they're working through September, are we going to provide them some space? And that classroom that's cut open and things like that, how are we going to, I'm sure they'll consider that, but.
Well, the classrooms that are affected would be, that would be
You'll just
completed.
partition
Because
them
the
up.
first thing we have to do is the shaft, and that will be impacting the square footage that has to be set aside for the shaft. That'll definitely be done well before the opening of school. And the relocation of the room that is currently
Yeah.
a
Conference room.
IEP and conference room, that's already
So that's the
pretty
easy
much
part.
will be underway, and we've already decided, and April, May has looked at exactly how that's going to work, and I think we have a.
That would be relocated before the day school opens.
Yeah, that'll, I think we would just be dealing with the fact that the mechanicals associated with getting the elevator to go up and down, et cetera, all that stuff would still be underway, but everything else would be definitely finished.
At least it'd be after hours, that's good.
Right.
Right. All right, so the next project then, moving on, the pavement rehab project. Again, we talked about adding Hollywood to the mix, basically repackaging and rebidding the central Hauser lots. Similar strategy in terms of bidding, but we take Hollywood as an alternate. You've already paid for, let's say, 80% of that project, of the central Hauser project. We'd obviously have to repackage it, we still have to rebid it, and we have to do constructions. Typically, that's about 25% of the fee. That first part's already done and paid for, so what we would do then is, even though we're packaging it together, we would still do, again, at the 8%, just because of the overall work that you're doing for the year. We would do basically that 25% for Central Hauser would be based on the new bids that are received, as well as then the Hollywood work. And then we take that, again, and whatever's awarded, we'd structure all that together, so.
So that would include site observation during construction?
Correct,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And that would be?
And if need be, it all depends. Paving projects sometimes can go fast, or they can drag out, so it just all depends on how many meetings are needed. I mean, we've always been, contractually, it's one site visit a week, obviously when work is going on, but if something comes up, I mean, we're 20 minutes away.
Is it sufficiently frequent once a week to sort of keep an eye on things?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just did a lot of paving projects last summer, and I think we had maybe 2 job meetings because a lot of the schools, they were strip and repave job, and they were pretty much done within a 2-week period, week and a half period.
So you don't find it beneficial to have someone come out and if they're going to put in whatever some amount of, say, base material, 8 inches or 6 inches, do you have someone come out and measure that it's really 8 inches or?
Actually, we do. We have a testing, usually you'll have a testing agent, and we'll have an allowance in there for the testing agent. And they need to do that anyway because they do all the compaction testing and the base testing, and they'll make recommendations. Once it's peeled open, there'll be a proof roll, they'll be there to witness it. We'll come out for that as well. So it's more than covered in terms of
most of
that
the
piece.
drama of a paving project is at that proof roll.
Right.
And that will, because all the pressure will be put on a peeled off subsurface.
Correct.
If there is caving in, sinking, that'll happen during the proof roll. So it'll be a news flash to the entire board after a proof roll is completed to let the board know what was encountered at that point in time, and at that time, the architect will have to develop a recommendation as far as use of unit pricing. I think one of the advantages of the way this bid is structured is that we do have an anticipation of unit pricing. There are alternates, and even at the time when the board has the opportunity to see the bid results, if the bids come in much higher than expected or much lower than expected, you have some options that you can decide up or down or sideways. That will be an important juncture, and then another major decision point will be at the time when the proof roll takes place, which will be supervised by the architect and
the testing corporation. Yeah.
So basically, it sounds like you feel like we would not need any additional construction management oversight for this kind of project?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Yeah, what we have in here is sufficient for it, so absolutely covered.
So, Paul, last time we talked about this, or in the spring, you talked about contacting the different paving contractors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think getting ahead of the game, we went out very late last year.
Yeah.
We had probably 3 or 4 that actually were interested in it, but last minute, couple of guys either got full with their work and couldn't reach their bonding capacity, and we only received one bid. I mean, it was not exactly an ideal scenario.
We have a paving contractor, asphalt paving contractor
Mhm.
right in Lyons. It's McCarthy.
I'm certainly welcome to bid on the project, so.
Yeah, well, sure. Maybe you could just add that to your list.
We could reach out.
We could reach out,
We
yeah.
reached out to Brothers Paving, we reached out to a number that.
Yeah, I probably reached out to more than a dozen contractors.
A question about the compensation for alternates that are not included in the contract for construction.
Correct.
You say that that's billed at 80% of the total, I'm just quoting from what I read.
Correct.
80% of the total cost of the alternates.
So for instance, if we bid an alternate that's $100,000.
Yes. So we say, we sort of bid it
And the
out.
fee is 8% of the 100,000. 80% of that 8%.
So like
because it's,
6,000.
correct, it would be, that's what was designed and then bidding period. So you're not paying for the construction period.
But we have to pay you a fee, basically, because you designed it already, even if we decide not to go with it.
Correct.
Okay. So like for the permeable pavers for 81,000, if we decide not to do that.
That was actually previously bid, so that's, and it's already drawn. That was already paid for.
Okay.
It would only be on construction and if you move forward with it. If you don't move forward with that alternate, you're not paying for that again.
In general, it sounds like we have to be careful when we ask you to look at alternates because we're paying for that regardless of whether we do it.
Correct.
Okay.
We're paying for the design.
The design of it, correct.
Yes.
And again, if it gets tabled for, like it happened this time, gets tabled for a year, then the next year, it's just a minor cost to repackage it, which is covered by that extra bidding period, and then the construction period if it moves forward.
Well, and Hollywood might be an example of that.
Right.
If the board decides not to do Hollywood, everything will sit on the shelf, and they take it off the shelf maybe in the summer of 2017.
Correct.
I had a question about also, I don't know if are you going to talk about the Blythe windows separately, or already talked about that?
That was in part with the elevators, correct.
You mentioned one of your to-dos are coordination with the district's environmental consultant.
Correct.
As relates to the abatement at Blythe Park.
Yes.
What abatement does that refer to exactly?
The existing windows are steel windows, and the caulk that's around the windows is asbestos containing.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And that's just something, we don't do environmental, so usually we work with the districts, whoever you use typically for that.
I have a recommendation on an environmental consulting company, and maybe I'll put that in writing. I've worked with the same company for 18 years, and the reason why that particular company is they do outstanding work, and they're out of Springfield, and they're very much experienced with getting waivers or variances from IDPH, very close communications and a long history of working with the state. And it is the Illinois Department of Public Health that oversees anything to do. That's the agency that's going to make a surprise visit whenever there is an abatement project. And that'll be put forward for the board's consideration. If the board would like to expand on consideration of other environmental consulting firms, that would be fine. But I definitely have a company that I've had very good experience with.
And then lastly would be the involvement with the playground project. I understand the proposal has a lot of things in it. These are things that could be done, don't necessarily have to be done. It all depends on where you end up going with it. And David, I don't know if you want to fill in on where you're at with that piece.
Well, we've done some internal, what would be under the heading of programming. One of the things we did was measure all of the place where there's a soft surface or a space for a cushioned fall underneath the playground equipment at all locations, and then divided that square footage by the number of students that are simultaneously expected to use. For example, over at Ames, they have 14 square feet per simultaneous use student, and at Hollywood, it's something like 36 square feet per student, and at Central, it's a little, just slightly more than Ames. So we're looking at how much of a playground resource is available in proportion to the student population at that particular school. So that's part of it. No, today, a company that has through, it's called the U.S. Communities, that is an agency that pre-negotiates the lowest pricing, so you really don't have to bid. There is no Illinois School Code requirement that bidding take place if an agency that's qualified has gone through the bidding process in advance. And U.S. Communities awarded the bid to Game Time. A representative from Game Time walk all 4 sites and have some interaction with Principal Kim Hefner. And I think we're talking about a cost that seems to be manageable. Blythe probably doesn't need anything. It's relatively newer equipment. They have lots of room. So really the areas that are more challenging are Hollywood, because there is a lack of early childhood, age 2 through 5. There is no equipment for that age, the early childhood. And then Ames is really lacking in square footage per pupil, and Central is lacking in square footage per pupil. So put all that together, I think there will be say a priority 1 recommendation to address the lack of early childhood. And we've talked about maybe having that equipment be movable. So if the Board of Education decided that you wanted to take that program and have it at a different site, that it would have been installed.
And you asked that question, it can be portable.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can say, okay,
excellent.
we want to buy equipment, we don't want the equipment to be sunk in concrete in such a way that it would be destroyed if you had to move it.
Right.
Yes, you can do that. But I think the lack of early childhood at all at Hollywood is probably the most significant situation. And then the rest of the kindergarten through 5th grade facilities need to be looked at in comparing and contrasting. And again, Blythe, set it aside. It's a really outstanding setup for Blythe Park students. That equipment is relatively new. So it's really Central and Ames and Hollywood, K through 5, that will need some programming study. And all along we've said this needs to be the subject of committee work. And so the committee would be convened with the objective of doing that comparing and contrasting. And let's see if I can, I don't have it. The guy gave me something. I thought this was fascinating, so I'm going to pull it off my phone. There's 6 activities that should be supported by the equipment. And they are swinging, sliding, climbing, spinning, balancing, and overhead climbing.
You should have gave him a test. I think you would have come up with that.
I thought that was very interesting, and this representative said that one of the things the committee could do is decide, well, we'd like to emphasize this, de-emphasize that, maybe we don't care about that. You know, in other words, that's where the committee's preferences would play out. He said sometimes in a beauty contest of companies competing against each other, they just want to show you something that's flashy and impressive. But the substance of what the equipment is doing as far as supporting these 6 activities is really what the committee should face as a challenge in terms of creating that environment that they want that is most beneficial to the students, to the children.
I mean, I kind of agree with what you're saying. It seems like it's not cut and dried what is the optimal set of playground equipment for kids. I mean, I think it probably involves different goals. I mean, if your goal is to get kids active, you might have a different set of things than if your goal is to refine their fine motor skills. What's appropriate for, I think, I wonder to what degree adults make assumptions. I'm sure people study this kind of thing about what is actually good for a 3-year-old as opposed to what really is good for a 3-year-old. And I wonder, I think a committee, could be very useful in investigating those
Well,
questions.
and are they accessible for the children, no matter where they are, what their needs are? They can get on the equipment and participate, or maybe like the man who presented last time talked about these emotional issues with playgrounds and having them kind of follow visually in a different way. I thought that was kind of fascinating. See what all the different
Right.
things you could do with color and music and putting those things on the playground. I think that would be really neat.
I was impressed
Talk
with
about.
that landscape architect that made that presentation, just in the fact that he didn't talk about just pulling things off of a shelf or from a vendor. It was kind of a design process, and it was custom maybe. It's not custom, you don't start over from scratch, but certainly you can do something kind of unique at each school.
Right, and so basically our proposal at this point is just a time material, because at this stage, we really don't know what and how deep and how involved we want to get, so.
Do you have a sense for, you're going to like go around and survey the playgrounds, and you said you would charge us time and material. Are we talking like $500 for that, or what is that roughly going to amount to?
It just depends on time, and again, and what level of involvement David wants to have from us.
The company I talked to today is responsible for 100 playgrounds for the Chicago Park District within the next year. And they've worked extensively with Chicago Public Schools. They have a tremendous focus on playgrounds. And they do the service for free. And when asked, well, what do you think of Hitchcock, which was the company that presented, well, that's a company that you'll pay a fee for, their consulting services, and they're more of a landscape architect that is going to possibly have goals that extend beyond the playground. So Game Time, New Toys, and another company we've talked to, they all do it for free, and they just focus on the equipment. Now, this is new territory for me, so I'm not, I don't really have a preference, but I'm just saying that what I'm hearing is that school districts typically just call one of these companies or two of the companies and say, give us your ideas, and then see if they can reach a level of customer satisfaction on that basis.
What the caveat there is that if they provide this service for free, they specify their own product. And oftentimes the product cannot be, am I wrong, Paul? It cannot be bid properly from other companies.
Well, that's what U.S. Communities has done as far as pre-negotiating the lowest price available for a school. So that, in other words, Payless 117 started out with New Toys because they were the lowest. They were awarded the bid from U.S. Communities, and then after 2 years, their status as the winner of the U.S. Communities low bid expired, and then Game Time became the lowest negotiated price, and Game Time took over. So, if I guess I could just look for direction from the board. If you would like us to go with a company or multiple companies for free, or if you'd like to have us engage Hitchcock as recommended by Leggett, but that would carry a fee structure associated with their consulting service.
I think, David, you had a good suggestion when we spoke a couple weeks ago about this, is that we take Hollywood as sort of like our test project. And maybe we utilize the resources of one of the companies you just referenced to take a look at Hollywood and come back to the board maybe in the next couple weeks, 3 weeks or so, and just and let us know what they thought. And what their recommendations are for it, and that will give us a little bit more information so we can make an educated decision going forward.
Including the meeting with the parents and the community over there.
Yes.
Yes. I guess I think that's a good idea. I guess I'd be tempted as well to set up a committee and to have them really delve into the philosophy of playgrounds, without any input from a company. and just say, like, what are the different options here? And there are many, many options, many ways to go. And sort of just think about what it is we're trying to achieve, in the playground. And look at the research that's out there. And then after they sort of come to some conclusions, then maybe reach out to a company and say, this company, I was talking to a woman who runs a Montessori school in Clarendon Hills over the weekend. And they engaged a company in Ithaca to design their playground. Now, they've got 3 acres, so they got a much more land to work on. They did some very naturalistic stuff. We obviously can't do that here because we're landlocked and have much land. But I think there are a lot of options. I'd be hesitant to commit to a company before we did our homework, I guess.
So something beyond the committee that's already formed at Hollywood.
I would sort of think we should be a district-wide committee.
Right.
Get input from all the different schools, some administrators, some teachers, some parents, maybe. That'd be, and maybe that would take longer, but maybe they could do maybe a more thorough job of it than.
It looks like Pam has some comments on this.
Can I just insert one comment? I think it's important as you're looking for the equipment, in particular to early childhood. Every other district that I've been in, when we've been looking at playground equipment for early childhood, a physical therapist has been part of that conversation.
Yes.
But you are looking at that equipment to help develop gross motor skills for young children and young children with disabilities. So that's going to be a critical piece to have one of our physical therapists to be part of that.
And occupational therapists as well. I would think, yes.
Yeah, for some of the fine motor pieces and the sensory pieces.
But the other issue
Yeah.
that I keep that also sticks in my mind, and I talked about this with you, Jeff, is we don't own the Hollywood land, and how does this play into all of that? I mean, that's an underlying issue. We kind of need to figure out how to address that particular issue. Do we need to rebuild this playground so that it's on our land? I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. But I agree with their philosophy. We need to look and see what options are out there because, in my opinion, it doesn't have to be. There were some very elaborate plans that were great, but sometimes a kid just give them a rock and a tree and a rope and they're good,
Called Peaceful Playgrounds. I looked at their website.
Yeah,
and
right.
They basically do stuff on the blacktop. They like simple games where they have like painting on the blacktop, and kids. It's much more active. It's less fine motor coordination, I guess, that you'd get if you're climbing on something. But there's different things that people can do for a lot less money that maybe would be beneficial, in different ways. So I think if we can explore that a little bit, I think it could be, better in the long run. Maybe.
I agree.
David, do you have any comments on the land concern that we discussed with respect to Hollywood?
Well, the Hollywood HCA, Hollywood Community Association, is communicating with Kim Hefner and saying that they're more than willing to give us all the space that we need. And it doesn't sound like it sounds like they have more land than this association needs for their own identity. I mean, basically what I understand is that that's a building that gets rented out for community events, and they're probably not spilling those events to use all of that green space that's around the building. So, I guess my one concern is that, looking at this from a big picture perspective and processing all of the philosophical facets that you can look at, this probably is going to lengthen the timetable for us to make some decisions, or we need to give whomever becomes our consultant leader, so to speak, an idea that we're doing this in phases.
Right.
And phase one is the early childhood program at Hollywood. That's kind of the direction that is going to be needed. If the board doesn't make that direction clear, then we're going to maybe miss this window of opportunity for the summer of 2016.
Right. I think it's okay if we prolong it, as long as we do it right. It's such a big investment, I'd hate to do it wrong. Now, are you saying that we get as much land as we need, or what was the offer? Was that an offer to sell?
No.
Part of their land?
It's for us to use.
I think it was
I'm sure it's to use, yeah.
To lease?
Yeah, do we have, is it a handshake agreement right now? That we use their property, is that what it is?
Right now, it's a handshake agreement.
Okay.
The association is looking for us to name them as additional insured.
Okay.
And, you can create a lease of of the property based on, minimal consideration.
What happens if they terminate that? What do, I mean,
Well,
get
I
our
mean,
money back? What,
just-
that's the kind of questions
just
I
to-
have
just to
about,
give-
how does that work?
Well, if you have a 20-year lease, which is possible.
Yeah, you could say we want.
Have an extended lease,
For the expected lifetime of the equipment.
yeah, but that would be good. That makes sense.
Yeah, but-
It needs a little more exploring.
Yes, we got to figure that piece out.
And
More detail.
First.
A lot of the equipment we have is, I'd say, maximally 14 years old, and based on this gentleman's discussion today, we should expect between 15 and 20 years out of the equipment. The equipment that we have is sturdy, safe, and not all that old in all of these locations.
Just not developmentally appropriate for the little ones, right?
Right, we have a gap between where we need to be and what we have, specifically related to the ECE program. I was interested to hear that the Chicago Park District uses $11 per square foot when they're planning 100 playgrounds. In other words, they create some benchmark cost analyses. The $11 per square foot in our case, and that would pay for the equipment and installation. That $11 per square foot times our square footage excluding Blythe works out to be about $200,000 of equipment for the 3 schools. And then if you put $100,000 to $150,000 for site work, so we're talking about $300,000 to $350,000 in total for all 3 sites, everything brand new and site completely redone. So I think there was some fear previously about this, becoming $1 million endeavor. Based on what I'm hearing today about how the Chicago Park District makes plans, I think we're probably talking about something that's a lot more contained in terms of total cost. But the good news is that, based on a review, and this gentleman said that he does have certified playground safety inspectors. There is such a thing. And you have somebody who is certified specifically in giving you a report and saying, here's any strength and weakness regarding the safety of your equipment. At this time, though, he's saying that, our equipment in one, I think Ames is like 12 years old. Central we only have one area, and that's only 2006. It's only 9 years old. And Hollywood is about a dozen years old. Yeah. So if one were to, I said to him, well, then this should last about as long as a roof, right? He said, yeah, about, between 15 and 20 years. So we're not at the end of our useful life as far as the equipment that we have. I think we probably have equipment that is not best practices or cutting edge or state of the art when you look at the design of those 6 activities that I just read along. We probably want to look at what's the best thing that we can provide to students in terms of an environment that meets the latest psychologists' viewpoints.
So I certainly am not anti-playground, but it might sound it for a minute, so just let me preface that. I certainly see the need of needing equipment at Hollywood for ECE. That's one situation. In the other category, all the other playgrounds, I think before we even start thinking about it, we have to think about, I only know Central because that's where my students went. Only a certain grade level plays there. So we have a subsample of the entire population playing on a playground. The rest of the kids go play elsewhere. Like 80% of the kids go play elsewhere. So before we just think about replacing the equipment at that spot, we need to assess is there anything else we can do to expand
Well, the word expand is appropriate for both Ames
Right.
and Central.
Because currently at Central, first graders play on the playground, everybody else goes in the blacktop. So,
Exactly.
so this is a lot of money to be,
So that's really,
You
I
know,
think,
and I'm not anti-playground, I think
when I
they're
was coming up with
super.
that-
I just think we need to really think about
Comes back to the point
it.
is we need to think it through and really
Right.
understand exactly what we have and
Right.
what we want to do.
I mean, I think at Central, there's even a rule, like, once you're in second grade, like,
You're not
after second
allowed to
grade, you
play
can't even
there.
go near the playground, like,
When
you're
I-
off limits,
When I
so,
calculated the $300,000 to $350,000,
yeah.
I assumed we would add 2,000 square feet
But where?
of cushion space
There is-
Yeah.
at Central and 2,000 square feet of cushion space at Ames.
Do we have that space, though? That's my concern, like,
Yeah,
that's my.
we walked around,
Okay.
I think we may have, I mean,
Yeah.
I'd have to show you a site plan, but there's some ideas. I mean,
That's just my only concern, that
Randy,
we,
you actually
Valid
talked about a
concern.
space that we're talking about, where it was flexible, educational,
In the back
in the
there.
courtyard area.
and they already do recess
That's
there.
actually being used as.
That's being used as recess and lineup,
Right,
and,
so
yeah.
that's already a playground space, it's just not outfitted with any equipment, nor does it have any
No.
cushioned fall.
And
It's a little dreary, actually.
Yeah.
In between.
That's the
alley
kind of work that a
between-
committee would do, but I'm assuming
there's
that the 300 to
lot of work to
350
be done.
includes expansion, because you don't have anything like parity right now between your four elementaries when it comes to amount of space.
Right.
Is there space at Ames? Is there extra space at Ames? Because that's one of their concerns, isn't it? They're kind of more landlocked, I think, than almost
They're-
any other school.
Right.
They're in a long, it's, I forget the dimensions, but it's like
Yeah.
100 feet long,
Right.
and at its narrowest, 18 feet wide. And that, there's space, we talked to Todd Gearman about it, there's blacktop that can be demolished, and you can probably
Could create.
increase it by 80%. Right at that footprint. It just needs to be widened and lengthened, and then you put in the cushion fall material and add some equipment, and you'd have a space that, one of the interesting things that this gentleman showed me was that each piece of equipment has a number of children who can use it simultaneously, a number for it. So you could actually calculate, if you have 185 students out at recess, what percentage of them will be on blacktop? What percentage of them
we need to
would
look
be
into
on
that.
cushioned fall with equipment? And then decide how much cushion and how much equipment on cushioned fall material do you need? So that's exactly the type of analyses that,
So,
I actually asked them to give me a first draft of that type of an analysis.
so I feel like we almost need to think of this playground in two separate, sections. We have the early childhood piece that seems to be an immediate need moving forward for next school year. And then we have this whole other piece of all the other playgrounds, or, is there a way we can achieve both, like do this, a prolonged committee to do the research, but also make sure that we're doing something for the early child,
I think based on the board's feedback, we should, and the fact that we have equipment that's not that old, I would, depending upon how Griff and Pat feel about this, say, front burner ECE, get it done in the summer of 2016, potentially back burner all the other K through 5 facilities, and say, we're going to have a plan for at least 2 of
17,
them
18,
being
yeah.
done in
Yeah.
summer of 2017.
Phase
Yeah,
it.
because I'm worried that
would be the easiest
we're gonna
path
prolong it so much
forward.
that things that need to happen
And
for next
after
year aren't
meeting
gonna
with this
happen.
group today, you felt very strongly that you'd recommend this particular provider, correct?
And it's a free.
I saw no
that
negative
one?
red flags interacting with game time.
Right.
And I think he made a strong argument about his experience. But, I mean, I'm hearing that board members would like to tap into expertise beyond game time, and that's fine. Let's tap into expertise that goes beyond game time. Look at Hitchcock. Look at the what was the Montessori school that you?
Well, no, this is an example. Basically, there are many, many different approaches that people
Right.
can take, and we should probably explore some of them before we decide on.
Right, so sit back, do all that exploration during the 2016s, but I think to make I just hate to open bids in May. So
Right.
if we're on a timetable to have all the plans and specs and all the decisions made for a summer of 2016, the clock is ticking fast.
Right, that's
And maybe
my
we
concern.
should revisit what are our expectations, and the playground equipment is really not that old.
Is there a board consensus to put together some type of a committee?
Yes.
And so Griff, do you think
Yeah.
you can put that committee together?
Yes, I actually have 2 representatives of Ames already.
Okay.
We'll get representatives of all the schools.
Okay.
I would,
So that's the first step.
yeah, I would just like to add that, Robin with Leggett is really I would call her an expert at outdoor play and,
It's a passion of hers, yeah.
yes, and we received a lot of literature on that, and it affected my decision in selecting your firm, her capabilities and her expertise. I would not like to see her push to the sideline on this. I would like to see Robin work with the committee, perhaps be a member of the committee. Of course, she would need to be reimbursed for her time.
Right. I mean,
Well, it would be at the rate structure. I mean, Robin is
Right.
one of my partners, so she would certainly be on that.
I think we would start to get to some of the more creative type of things that we saw in that presentation last night, or last time, where there were changes of gradient, and the changes of gradient were not just in the piece of playground equipment. It was incorporated into the site, and there were little walls and sort of things. And I don't think you're going to get that from game time. I think you're going to get, essentially, you're going to get the flat surface, and you're going to get pieces of playground equipment that stick up. But you're not going to get that, what would I call it, a unique design.
I just worry, though, that we're maybe not at the point to be paying somebody to be a part of the committee. Like, I'm a little bit concerned
It's
about
$200 an hour, right?
$200 an hour to be, I don't know if we're
People
there.
are just kind of like, the initial stages, at least talking things
Right.
through.
Why not
I
have
think
the
we should
committee
we need
meet,
to be-
and if they want to come to the board and recommend
Right.
that they have that kind of input
And I hear what
and
you're saying,
expertise,
she
let 'em-
sounds great, but
let 'em
I just,
make their
I worry
recommendation.
that we're gonna start putting a lot of money in this before we're ready to put money into this.
So Griff,
I just
can you
wanna
let
be-
us know at the next board meeting the progress on formulating this committee?
Absolutely. Well, I'll have the names of the committee members for you. I'll present them to you.
And I'd like board members to do a gut check and a straight face test on what you would authorize in terms of consulting fees. $10,000 of fees at $190 an hour is 52 hours. So, if we're talking 5,000, 10,000 of consulting fees related to this entire study, you're probably being realistic as far as the cost per hour. But if you want to keep it low, then you would do what I just did, which is get a company to come in here for free and then do a lot of work for free. The downside of that is that you're engaging them without any promise of them getting any money, because they may not get the bid, they may not get the business. So that's the kind of direction that we would probably need, is a straight face test on consulting fees.
Yeah, I think we have to come back to the 20th and tell you what our estimated cost would be, if that's the direction you want to go.
And if you really have a good, solid contingent of community members that want to participate in this, if you have 10 or 12, and they may be very qualified. I think we
Might
need
have
to
some
wait to
people
see.
So is the idea to get some community members, some administrators, some teachers, some of the
Physical therapists.
and you did some other term that was
There's also a lot of
Occupational.
occupational therapist.
districts who have early childhood centers who have done a lot of studies in building, playgrounds.
So we
and
could
conversations
take
with
advantage
those
of that, some of
people,
that, basically.
and visiting some of that equipment. Some of that's been done around this area for a long
So
time.
maybe the committee could then visit some of these places and say, oh yeah, we like that, we like that.
Great point. Okay, what else do you have?
Well, and if I may, it's not on my list to coin a. But Blythe Roof, we did get out there. Had our roofing specialist get out on the roof today. He said there is one spot, and I can go through that with David where it's at, but that he feels had a small blister. He thinks probably needs to be taken care of, but he believes we can push it off to the 17 year. But it's getting to that point. There are other blisters starting.
So 2017.
We designed it for 2017 construction.
Okay, so we're 1 year away from a significant investment in the Blythe Road.
Okay. With some repairs this year.
Yeah, minor.
Okay.
He said it's something you can certainly hire whoever that's done any minor roof patching for you, and just to do it doesn't need to be.
In our 22nd year on that road. So 22 years on a roof.
Yeah, it's nothing that I have. It's nothing we have to design. It's just have someone come out. He said it actually looked like a spot that might have been previously patched.
So, Paul, knowing that building a little bit, there are some leaks, roof leaks, that come down into the classrooms. And I think it's at least 3 different locations. So
I thought those were under control, but maybe mistaken.
Those have been solved.
Yeah, when was this?
We haven't had a roof leak in a classroom.
Kasmira, any roof leaks this year?
There's one above room 6 where the ceiling area, water area mark has grown. And then in the kindergarten area, there seems to be that same patchiness over there.
Is it more in the middle of the room, or is it near an edge?
The one by room 6 is right by the entranceway, and then the one in the kindergarten room is right by the bathroom.
Have we put a bucket out on any dripping?
No, that used to happen in the intermediate entranceway, and we've had some pretty significant rainfall this year, and we have not had that this year.
So we have no dripping, let's put it that way.
we've got roof leaks, though, at 2 locations that I would just, before we act on this, I would like to see those looked at.
Okay.
Well, we did have a company come out and do some patching
They were looking at
and address the area where we were having active leaks, because we were having active leaks that were causing the dripping coming down, and those were repaired. So if there's a need for more repairs, we'll do more repairs, but I think we'll probably still be good for the 20th. In the summer of 2017, we're probably talking about a $400,000 roof job.
Right. We're looking at probably full tear off, correct?
It's like.
So that's unless you have any other questions, that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Pizzetti.
Yeah, you're welcome.
David, anything else to cover?
Well, the last thing is if board members are interested in reviewing this, it went out in the board materials. This is what will be, I understand that the spirit of strategic planning is for a person in my role to be a great listener. I plan on being a great listener, but sometimes you also have to provide the people that are participating with some kind of a backdrop or fundamental basics, and that was the intent of this document. To the extent that I see, a lack of interest in me going through this, I'll certainly.
They'll all be here on the 15th.
I think it's great. I think
It was very informative.
Fantastic.
No, I
If
would
there is
like
some
it
interest,
if I
then
was-
I'll plow right into it.
I think we can do it on our own.
I think that's
Only at your own,
This will be
I'm sure
my,
they'll say 15 minutes and then stop, whatever you have to say.
this will be my bedtime reading tonight.
I was gonna say, maybe it's 7 o'clock, but I don't know about 9:45.
no.
Yeah.
But I will be making some, what I think are interesting points, because you know, there's,
He's gonna do it himself.
He wants to go through it.
Couldn't help yourself.
Hit the gavel, hit the gavel.
All right, I've included my own tax bill unless nobody. I got my own property tax bill.
Just make the point, it's a great point.
And then I'd also like to highlight that because of the transfer out of education into debt service, we're only in the 60th percentile on cumulative reserves, which is probably something that people would be surprised to hear. And per capita tuition, we're relatively, 58th percentile on how much we're spending per pupil. Does not make us to be a school district that is, overspending certainly on a per pupil basis. And then this chart is pretty complicated, but I'm trying to explain where does the money go? Well, the money goes mainly to salaries and benefits. And other categories are everything in the orange color is a little bit hard to control. We can negotiate with the bus company how much it's going to cost for transportation. Outplaced special education tuition, it's a little hard to control that. We're in a more reactive mode. What we spend on energy costs for natural gas and electricity, somewhat hard to control. What we spend on insurance. So to give people an idea of, where can we actually manage the budget and have a lot of strength in making the decisions, and where we don't, and where is the money going? I'm sure that people on the committee will be interested in at least me covering that to some extent. Where does the money come from?
Right.
Where does the money go?
And I want to hear that you want to move to Riverside based on your taxes.
I do. I'd say $531.
There you go.
It's cheaper to live here.
Griff, are we
I know many homes for sale.
have similar documents for the other?
Yes, we have one for every document. It won't be as extensive.
As
For
finance.
example, no, in human resources,
Paul.
we're going to give the breakdown of our staff. It's really on the report card. Number of master's degrees, bachelor's degrees, years experience, that kind of information.
When is that all going to go out to the?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yeah. All the process that Bob put together, along with sort of a background for each one of the groups. Again, not as extensive as
great.
finance.
That's great.
So, are we still in the finance committee, or? We're still in finance. Chair?
Yes, sir. Speak on.
Are we using Hodges, Louisi, Eisenhammer, Rodick, and Kahn any further as an attorney?
That's what I'm aware of.
Yes, I'm just.
I think they just send it.
Oh, they said it's free. Is that
Yeah,
what
I
you're
know they
talking about?
send it free, but I'm just wondering, is it appropriate for us to, it's an advertising piece, is what it says right on the front page. And
Well,
do we
that's okay.
receive advertising pieces from anyone that wants to send them to us?
No, but I know the firm, and what they provide, the information they provide is helpful to the board.
Yeah.
It's a newsletter.
Yeah, it's just a newsletter.
but
They
it
send
is-
it to their own
Yeah.
members.
It is a firm that we decided to change. We
Oh, I
left
thought,
this
I
firm.
thought you had a different firm than that.
No, we had Hodges, Louisi.
Oh, you did?
At one
Okay.
point,
That I
and
didn't know.
we voted to
Yeah.
change.
We usually, most school districts get these kind of newsletters from all the different attorneys. Yeah, and they're trying to reach out, and they would like your business, of course. But they also provide information and summary of laws that is helpful to the board. And if I see a nice summary like that, I
Yeah.
pass it out.
Okay, I'm just wondering where
Want
it
me to throw them in the
starts and where it
garbage? I'll
ends.
throw them in the garbage, but I think it'd be,
Yeah.
it's helpful.
No, I agree. I think it's good to have that information.
I just don't like it. I'll just state that. We have an attorney that we're working with, and I think this is a little inappropriate to have an opposing attorney's newsletter.
I think it's actually good. I would personally think we should seriously consider getting a second law firm and using more than one law firm in general, because I think it's better to use multiple firms. For example, in brokerages in my firm, we would never use a single brokerage. It'd be madness. You always want to have competition. I think it's good to do that. I mean, we'll get those,
One of the
hey, these
policy
guys over here
updates,
doing
too.
this, or doing that.
My prior district had 3 firms, and for example, Pam might find somebody in a particular firm that's great in special ed. May not have that kind of quality in another firm. Another person in terms of tax assessment issues. That, you know, Dave said, listen, this is the best person possible. And that's the way a lot of school districts pick their legal support. Not just by one firm and
Sure.
and then take the experts that happen to be
I'm
in
just
that.
saying that we had a unfortunate experience with
No,
this.
see, I never even knew that.
Yes.
I just.
Yeah,
So-
they, Frantic and Radley replaced them.
Oh, okay.
And-
See, I thought they replaced Gariano, so I
No,
know.
and it
No,
was,
no,
it was for cause.
Well, I'm just gonna say it's always important that your law firm is representing the board.
Right.
And that they represent the board. And I guess that's all I'll say.
Thank you very much, David, for the Finance Committee report. What do we got to do here to close this baby down?
That's it. We just have to set the future meeting. Sorry.
Let's hire a couple
Gavel
of law firms.
Future meeting dates, October 15th, 2015. We have a special meeting at 6:25 in the Resource Center at Hauser, which is for the first focus group meeting, and also for the
Hearing on the
waiver
waiver of PE waiver, right?
PE waiver. October 16th, 2015, we have a special meeting at 6:30, which is the second night of focus groups. October 20th, we have a regular business meeting here in Hauser at 6:30. I believe our agreement was that we'll go into closed session at 6:30 and try to be out of closed session at 7 PM. Is that correct? Rather than 7:30?
I believe that's what everybody agreed. Is that,
Yes.
did we get a yes from everybody on that?
Yes.
The public, we're gonna get, if we have any executive session discussion, it'll be done by 7 o'clock and it'll be out in public.
So we'll be back in public at 7
Seven.
PM.
Public
Perfect.
expectations.
We should put that in the agenda so it's clear, maybe, just
Right.
that.
Make it very clear.
November 4th, we have another committee, the whole meeting at 7 PM here in Hauser. And then November 17th, we have a regular business meeting at 6:30, a closed session, and then open session at 7 o'clock.
Is November 4th the date that you're meeting with David and Dennis? Is that what's on the schedule?
That might have been on the schedule, yeah. Might have been.
Was that what he had up? I want to make sure if that's the same date.
Because of the election on Tuesday.
Oh, the
Right, so
election,
that's right,
right.
that's a Wednesday. November 4th is a Wednesday, that's right, that's a Wednesday.
November 3rd.
Third.
It's the date he has on the
He said
calendar.
the third.
Okay.
They've got November 3rd, and they want you to go in, I think, into closed session to discuss salary and benefits.
So, do we want to push that to the November 4th meeting then?
We would add that to the 4th meeting, yes. You purposely did not have it on election day, correct?
Right.
So they weren't aware of that, I'm sure.
All right, so at this time, is there a motion to enter into closed session to discuss litigation when an action against, affecting, or on behalf of the particular public body has been filed and is pending before a court or administrative tribunal, or when the public body finds that an action is probable or imminent, in which case the basis for the finding should be recorded and entered into the minutes of the closed meeting?
So moved. Oh, second.
Second. Is this roll call vote?
Yes, this is roll call.
Margie, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Brockway?
Yes.
Ms. Kleiber?
Aye.
Ms. Mangia?
Aye.
Ms. Morello?
Aye.
Dr. Miller?
Aye.
Ms. Murphy?
Aye.
Mr. Regan?
Aye.
And there'll be no action.
Be no action when we come back.
When we come back.